So I see we're going to talk about Royal Raymond Rife today, John. How did you first get involved with that stuff?
Well, I started my research back in the around 75.
1975.
I had got this fax paper over the fax machine because that's what we had then was fax machines. And I was very interested in it because of the microscope. You know, I always had a fascination with telescopes and microscopes. And I thought to myself, oh, that should be pretty easy to make. But turns out that grinding lenses and things like that wasn't exactly what I would call really easy. And so what happened was I started to read about the machine. So I started thinking to myself, all these things that I was working on, right, that it's just an electrical signal. You know, and if you put an electrical signal and it has frequency, because everything involves frequency all the time. And so I thought to myself, well, I'll just make a simple little oscillator, you know, with one of these timers. And I'll give it a shot. I'll just hook it up to myself, right, and see if I notice any difference. Well, to tell you the truth, Pat, I didn't notice one thing. And so I researched more and I researched more, and then I ran across this guy, the name John Crane.
Okay.
So I searched desperately, you know, through stuff to try to find where can I call this guy, can I ask him questions, can I meet this Rife? But Rife was already dead because he died in 71.
Okay, yeah.
And so I finally got a hold of John Crane.
And John Crane used to work with Rife or what?
Yeah, John Crane. He took Rife under his wing and fed him alcohol, you know, and that's how he kept Rife. But he actually met him through a drafting set, you know, that he saw at a pawn store. That's how and I guess Rife told him the story of his life. And
Rife was in San Diego, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, down on Loma Street or something, his laboratory was in Point Loma. The Bridges home was his laboratory. And so what I did was I got a hold of this guy on the phone and I said, what's this involve? Because I think at that time my aunt was dying of cancer. And so Ron and I and Gary and everybody were looking for alternative medicines rather than to go through whatever the medical profession wanted you to do. So I started talking to him, and I was at Gamma Electronics at the time. We were doing big amplifiers and stuff like that. And I got Gamma Electronics interested in going down to San Diego. So I think it was George Fensel, myself, and Hank Chappell who started the Gamma Electronics. And we got there and I was just totally blown away because you couldn't walk in the house. There was that many. There was piles of papers and this over there and this over there. Sort of like this shop in a way. But,
So you're saying it was really disorganized, or?
oh, it was just terrible condition, just filthy, dirty.
Oh, okay.
This is John Crane's house.
Yeah, John Crane's house.
Yeah.
And so everybody, he took me down this pathway into the basement. And in the basement, here was this, all different kinds of things. Some machines, you know, which didn't look familiar to me. But here was this virus microscope all taken apart. The actual big, gigantic microscope.
Yeah.
And so I thought to myself, well, you know, maybe something can be made out of this if I can get John Crane. You know, maybe we can pay him to do something with us, or take him out of this condition that he's in, right, and maybe rebuild this microscope and get it to go and everything. But
Rife's original training was as
bacteriology.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he's, Rife was a different kind of guy. Rife, no matter what he put his mind to, he could do it well. So he not only did mechanics real well, like on the built engines, he built, worked for, I think it was the microscope company, and where he learned bacteriology in the university where he did pictures and got an award for doing that and stuff. So Rife was kind of a unique guy, but I want to go back to this thing that was in the basement. Now, let me explain this basement to you, Pat. You went down these stairs, and it was dirt. I mean, here's this optical marvel in the dirt downstairs.
It wasn't a concrete floor or anything like that?
No, no, it was just all moist and musty and just tons of dirt, and I said, what would it take to get this back together? He said, it would take a lot of money to get this back together, I said. So I got thinking to myself, and I left. And then I called him up. And I said, well, we'd like to order 3 of your cancer machines. And of course, to my surprise, when I went to pick them up, they were just some signal generator that he bought off the shelf. He charged us, I think, $500 a piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't, $500 or $600 it was there, and $300 for the manual that he had written. And I got them back to the shop, and I said, what good is this? I mean, I got them on my bench, for audio work. And these were something that Allied put together, something they were just cheap, IC generators. Mm-hmm. So I called him back up, and I said, well, what would it take? In the meantime, he had got this guy, Dr. Strecker. Dr. Strecker.
Okay.
Was trying to contact him too because he had read about him.
Was he a medical doctor?
Yeah, he was a medical doctor. He was actually a PhD in pharmacology. He was
and a medical doctor.
He was taking care of my aunt.
Okay.
And he got a hold of me on the telephone, and he says, well, I'd like to go. I'd like to go down there. So we took off. We went. And I said to Strecker on the way, let's just see, what he wants to come and work with us to make all this work again. Because Strecker was really interested in getting this machine to work.
I'm sure.
And so we went down there and we had a long talk with him. Of course, the guy could eat. We took him to lunch, and the guy probably ate 3 meals at lunchtime. So we're looking at each other, right, and we're going, this guy's starving.
Yeah.
The money we gave him, he obviously owns the house because it's not, and nobody's helping, and it's filthy dirty. And so Strecker and I talked him into, we'll pay your bills, what you owe, if you come and work with us. Well, about 2 weeks later, all this stuff starts showing up at my shop.
The shop in Sylmar.
Yeah, the microscope, big ray tubes, but no real machine. No real Rife machine because he didn't have it. And so I was saying to myself, well, if he doesn't have the real machine, how are we going to make this machine, right? And he would always say to me, oh, it's in the book. And that was a drawing of the AZ-58, which John Crane and John Marsh and Rife made, but Rife really, I think Rife knew that wasn't going to work, but never said anything.
Okay.
Because it didn't work. And so what happened after that was he ends up in Sylmar. He brings all his lenses. He brings everything that he could get out of that basement up to Sylmar.
Okay.
And in the meantime, he lived with Dr. Strecker. So Dr. Strecker would bring him to work in the morning before he went to the hospital, and then pick him up on the way home from the hospital. But meaning you had to feed him first. We had to go to dinner every night. We had to go to lunch every day, and this guy ate like there was no tomorrow.
Was he very overweight?
Oh, no.
Oh.
Oh, no. John Crane was probably, I guess, 70-something then.
Okay.
And I would question him all day long about this stuff. Meanwhile, Gary gave him a drafting table in Sylmar, and he was drawing the pieces that were missing from the microscope, and then he would hand me the sheet. You know, and I'd go back in the machine shop like we have here, and I would cut out the things for the lenses and then came the day, Pat, where he said, we need to get prisms, because that microscope had prisms in the barrel. You know, that zigzag in the barrel, they would zigzag.
Okay.
They wouldn't let the light rays cross. And so I must have drove for miles and miles and miles looking for glass prisms. You know, going to one optical place, then to another optical place. And this stuff was not cheap. Meanwhile, we're paying his bills. And we're buying, you know, $400 and $500 prisms that are optical glass, when he knew that that's not what was in the microscope. What was in the microscope were quartz prisms. And he had them hid. So he was just making something to put in. He was just making work, is what I was saying to myself, right?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm trying to figure out what the actual machine is, and I said to him, John, where is the paperwork for Rife's real frequencies? I don't know, he would say. So, well, I had them, and then they disappeared, and then this went there, and that went over there, and something went somewhere else. And so he would always quote to me, he said, 400 cycles for this, you know, 1,275 for this, and I'm going to myself, these are just standard audio frequencies. What good is that going to do? When I bought this generator from you, I hooked it up to myself. I didn't feel anything. You know, I couldn't tell any difference. The only thing that you could tell is when you got it to low frequency, your arms were going.
Yeah.
You know, just like a TENS unit, almost like a muscle relaxant unit. And so I said to myself, this can't be right. So, in the meantime, I was talking to Tom Bearden, and I said, you know, Tom, I have the microscope here. What? I said, Tom, I have the microscope here. I said, I have John Crane here and the microscope and everything. I said, and I'm trying to build this unit to kill this stuff under the microscope. Meanwhile, Strecker spent a lot of money. Strecker bought an incubator, which we still have to that day. He brought in a laboratory microscope. He brought in slides. He brought in auger dishes. We had everything. And I says to Bob Strecker one day, I says, Bob, I says, you're culturing all this stuff out here and you're growing it here in the shop. I said, what if somebody gets sick? He says, I'll just give him antibiotics. That was what he said. I said, okay, I'm happy with that. You know, don't have to come for an office visit.
Right.
You'll just bring them in and we'll get them, right? So in the meantime, both of us are questioning John Crane about the frequencies, but I'm sitting there trying to think of a machine. You know, because I knew everything was frequency related, because Rife's papers indicated that there was a different frequency for every little virus and bacteria. And there were a limited amount, Pat. There probably weren't more than 36 that he found over the course of time. Because then he got disrupted and ended up in court. And so I kept asking John, where did you get these frequencies? Oh, Rife. And I said, well, that can't be right, John, because, you know, if you take 100 cycles and you can get your muscles to move, 50 cycles, you can get your muscles to move, and this and that. And I said to myself, no, that can't be right, because it had to be a mix of something. Something had to be mixed. So I started developing, I'm going to go into this now. I started developing this machine. And this was one of the first prototypes that I talked to Tom Bearden about, was this machine right here. And in the meantime, Tom Bearden says, I'm going to fly out with Doris. And I said, well, I think I can have this machine done by the time that you fly out here. And so I said to myself, I got to get busy. So I really was not paying attention to John Crane. Meanwhile, what John Crane was doing was he was calling up people from the office, and he was telling them to come down and he'd treat them right there.
Oh, God.
With the machines that he had. And so when Dr. Strucker and I found out that he was treating people, I mean, Dr. Strucker just blew it.
Yeah.
He just said, what did I tell you? He goes, you're not a medical doctor, and you are treating people for diseases that you know for a fact that we can't prove that you cure them. So it's pretty,
Yeah.
you know, right up front with him. This doctor was willing to take and culture out bacteria, and he did. He cultured out strep, and he cultured out African sleeping sickness. He just cultured everything out. Mm-hmm. And then what we would do is, as we were trying these specific generators under the microscope, we'd watch to see if we could regrow them. And of course, everything regrew.
Right.
In the meantime, John Crane would walk out of the office. He'd have a magnet or something in a satchel. And he'd go, I'll show you boys right now that this won't grow. And he'd open up the incubator. And he'd stick the magnet on top of the agar dishes. And Strecker and I would look at each other and go, and laugh. Next day, Pat, we would come in and that bacteria was still growing. So, and we'd go and we'd get John Crane and say, see, that magnet isn't going to do anything. Well, I can tell you that that magnet's going to do something. And Strecker and I would say, yeah, it's going to do something. It's going to magnetize stuff. It's going to ruin the tapes that we got here, you know, where you can't listen to them no more. And he was just like an impossible guy once he got something in his head.
So what was his background? Was he a scientist?
He's a draftsman.
That was it? He wasn't a scientist in any way?
No, he met Rife and at the pawn shop for the drafting set, and I guess he really took an interest. And then, of course, John Marsh, his buddy, this was during the 50s, 57, 50, during around there. So I didn't know any of them, but I heard that they went to jail. And what Strecker and I were saying to ourselves, geez, this guy's calling people, and he's telling them to come in here, and he's got that signal generator that you bought. I bought, right? And he's treating people with it.
Is that why he went to jail?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were treating somebody, and nothing, I guess, didn't work. Of course it wasn't going to work, because that's not what this machine's about. You know, Rife stated very plainly that they weren't audio frequencies. You know, they were in the AM band and some in the megahertz band. Two of them, I think, two or three of them are in the megahertz band, and we'll get into that. Your cancer, Rife said, is very high in frequency. And then there's other ones that are very low. But originally, Pat, how Rife saw that this was going to work was, if you think about it, back, I guess you would say the 20s and the 30s, they didn't have frequency generators like we have today. He used audio couplers. You know, for somebody that's not familiar with an audio coupler, that's a machine, you know, that's coils that you slide in and out until you get, and it makes up like an oscillator, and so you get different frequencies by moving the coil in and out. And they call that an audio coupler. So I think
really.
what Rife did was he might have seen where he cultured out, you know, E. coli or something like that, and he saw a slight little wiggle in it when he got, I mean, that's as good as the microscope was at that time. Rife couldn't work with that microscope, so he had to develop, you know, the biggest virus microscope. He had to see at least 15,000 times. You know, and I think you could go up to 20, maybe 30,000 times with it. Meanwhile, here we are looking at this marvel, and John Crane is drawing stuff, but we're not getting anywhere with this thing. We're driving all over the place looking for lenses. We're driving all over the place looking for prisms. It's costing hundreds of dollars, which Gamma paid for.
And Gamma, who was Gamma again?
Gamma Electronics was the amplifier company in Paramount, California, and I had a research lab up in Selmar that was part of Gamma, and so we just put all that stuff up there. And so the more I think about it, then I finally got frustrated one day, and I says, okay, John, you must know where there's one Rife machine. He says, yes, I do. And I'm going, oh, I might be getting somewhere here, right?
A Rife machine or a Rife
Rife machine, a real machine.
machine, not the microscope.
Not the microscope, the machine.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, where do we go? So, well, the last I remember it was down over here towards Hollywood and blah, blah, blah. So I take off in the car. And I says, well, do you know the doctor that had the machine? He says, yes. He goes, that machine was, the doctor hid behind a wall. But I know where it is. I think I know where it is. So we end up in the Hollywood Hills, you know, behind Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
And we're driving up the streets, and he's looking at the buildings, and he says, I think it was that house right there. So I stop, go to the door, knock on the door. I get to the door, only to get the door slammed in my face. so by saying, are you kidding? There's no such person that lives here. So we never did find it. We must have wasted 40, maybe 40 days driving around looking for a machine. And one day I was down there, and I said, as long as I'm down here by Marina Del Rey, I think I'll just take my boat out. Whether they get on it or they don't get on it, I'm going to take the boat out, right? So I took the boat out, and I went out for a while. I thought about it all, and I said, no. I said, this isn't going to work. Put the boat away, got them all in the car, and drove back. I said, this isn't going to work. I says, John, I said, are you sure you just don't have any notes? So he did have some notes that he took out of a book. And he had pictures, of course, and he said this was this and this was this. Because Rife took a lot of pictures of different kinds of viruses and things. Cancer virus and what it looked like under the microscope. And I said to myself, okay, it says here that it's 1706 something, in these notes. Of course, that wasn't right. Rife wasn't reading the frequencies right in the end, we found out, because Hoyland corrected all those frequencies. That was his engineer, Rife's engineer. Because I remember from John Crane playing a transcript where Hoyland said Rife thought he had the frequencies, but he didn't. Now, remember, Milbanks Johnson, the guy that wanted to make this machine work and was running that clinic and everything, the sanitarium, he wanted an electronic engineer to make the machine so it would be portable, because before it was all these boxes, which was standard stuff right off the shelf, Kennedy tube equipment. Now, the funny thing about this, Pat, is why would nobody ever see this? And so I just said to myself, I can't do this anymore. I just have to start from scratch. Meanwhile, Tom Bearden comes. And Tom Bearden's looking that microscope over and taking the pictures, because really it was a beautiful microscope. Probably about 200 or 300 pounds.
Wow.
A big base on it and everything. And so I get going. I start putting stuff like this together. I talked to Tom Bearden about the pump wave and everything, and he said, oh yeah, the Peoria machine, John. He says, that didn't work unless they were in this magnetic blah, blah, blah field and all this stuff. And so I started to put a machine together like this that mixed all these and this is the exact machine, and this is the one that I handed a paper out on, starting with all these oscillators at different frequencies and one fundamental oscillator. And then, of course, amplifying that and running it into a transformer. And then I had a pump wave, which was very mandatory in this type of system.
John,
Yes.
Before you get into the pump wave deeper, I just had a question. It must have been really frustrating for you to work with John Crane.
Oh yeah, it was very, very headstrong.
Okay.
In other words, once he got an idea in his head, you weren't changing John Crane's mind about anything. He would just persist. As an example, I was asking him about the prisms in the microscope.
Yeah.
Before. I said, John, if you know that Rife used all quartz lenses, why would you want to be putting this microscope back together again with lenses that aren't equivalent to what Rife had? Well, it doesn't make any difference. I've built this and this and this, and it really didn't make a difference. And now, don't get me wrong about John Crane. I mean, he was a good draftsman. He built a couple of microscopes, for doctors, and those doctors said they worked great. Probably 5,000 diameters or something like that.
Yeah.
And he patented I think he applied for a patent. I don't know if he ever got it. I never investigated it, but he did a projection microscope where I think you can find that online.
Okay.
But as far as him telling you the truth about things, he had little secrets. And he would play a game with you. You would ask him something one day, and I probably was a little bit tricky for him because I would change the question the next day.
Yeah.
And probably drove him a little bit buggy, and I would get him into conversations for hours about Rife, about where's the machine, Now, here's my suspicion, Pat. There was a doctor in LA that had a machine. But that doctor took the faceplate off that machine because I remember John Crane saying something like that they had changed the front of the machine somehow.
What do you mean the faceplate? Like the name?
The name.
Okay.
Because right there was, Rife Labs or whatever was
Yeah.
on that
The
machine.
name tag.
Yeah, the name tag on the
Yeah.
machine. Now, my suspicion is that Jeff Garf,
I was going to ask you about him too.
yeah, who has reproduced the MW, which is a multi-wave oscillator, this what he calls a MOPA. But when I moved up here, you see, I probably brought that MOPA back to life because I remember building the machine, and there's one upstairs here, we could drag it down and look at it, but the thing is that I remember doing that, putting it on the internet and rife.org,
Yeah.
But you got to remember too, I was working with Lynn Kenny. I was talking to Jeff Garf. Jeff Garf used to come and visit me, and I was talking to Stan Truman of rife.org. Plus I was on the Rife sites, doing all different kinds of machines, multi-wave oscillators and everything that had to do with this. But the thing that, when Jeff Garf told me that the Royal Rife, history, that he had put this thing up and go download the PDF and read the PDF and you'll understand the whole thing. Not everybody can download that and understand the whole thing, but the thing about it was that it made perfect sense to me when I read it of how it actually operated, how it operated. And I was wondering to myself, because the more I thought about driving Crane around, looking for this machine that was sealed, if that didn't come, that was the only surviving machine, because guess what? The machine that Jeff Garf got had no faceplate, no name.
So are you saying that you think that might have been the machine
Well,
that
he
was
got
sealed in the
that from
doctor's office?
he got that from a Dr. Lowe.
Okay.
But where did Dr. Lowe get it from?
Yeah. You see, because you mentioned a little earlier that a machine had been sealed up in the wall in some doctor's office.
That's what he told me.
Yeah, which sounds really sort of skullduggery type stuff.
I mean, this guy would tell you things and you'd go, okay, John, let's go find that. I would.
Yeah.
Dr. Strecker, not so much, because Dr. Strecker lived with him enough, taking care of him at night to figure out that maybe it's just BS.
Yeah.
And I was more investigative towards the type thing, okay, John, if you're talking about it, let's go get it. Mm-hmm. Let's go find it. Because I have a pretty open mind. I mean, I was conventionally trained, in electronics and everything. But I still had an open mind, or I wouldn't have worked with Tom Bearden. Tom Bearden, on the other hand, I was discussing everything that I was doing with it. And I said, you and Doris need to come out here. And they flew out. And Tom took all kinds of pictures of this microscope disassembled.
Yeah.
Where they are, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Where any of this stuff went, I have no idea. Wherever the machine that did the zapping under the microscope went, I have no idea. But I remember keeping a copy of the diagram of the machine. So it doesn't end there, Pat. This goes on with John Crane, because I'll just jump a little bit ahead in the story, but then I'll go back.
Okay.
When we did get this to work under the microscope, that was Strecker's microscope. Actually, I don't think it was Strecker's microscope. I think it's the one that I bought. I made special slides. I made special capacitive slides, which the foil was, It was more like a capacitor. So when you put the virus on the slide, you know, when I had those 30 doctors in the room with Strecker and John Crane, the first thing that came out of John Crane's mouth was, he pots the circuits. I didn't want John Crane
Yeah, I don't
selling
blame you.
my circuit off,
Right.
you know?
One question, why were there 30 doctors assembled? What was this, a conference?
Strecker got them together to prove to them that the machine would actually kill these
Yeah.
bacteria and these living creatures underneath the microscope. It didn't at first.
Mm-hmm.
It took a lot of work to get it to where it finally worked. And one of the things was the pump wave. That made a big difference in the machine, and that was discussed with Tom Bearden. Now, Tom Bearden was present to examine the microscope. He was not there when the 30 doctors were there.
Okay.
But,
And was it Tom that said the pump wave is necessary for the...
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. And I said, okay, Tom, let's talk about this pump wave for a minute. No, he didn't quite know what I was going to do for a pump. You know, but I thought, okay, maybe that'll carry the frequency, you know, which was modulated on this wave, which I drew right here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, across this capacitive slide, and it'll kill this stuff. Well, when I did that, bang, and these doctors were in the room and they saw it, each one. And if you made a mistake, Pat, if you swabbed the slide and then you put that swab back in the culture, they were all dead.
Huh.
You could not get them to grow back for nothing. You had to wash that jar out. You had to steam sterilize that jar. You had to leave it. Then you had to regrow the culture again. And then if you made that mistake again, they were dead.
Yeah.
I mean, I did not even realize what Tom was talking about, you know, until it hit me like a light bulb that once this pump wave is involved, it carries it in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that frequency stays in the cells. Somehow it gets in there and stays there.
Okay.
Now, I'm not a medical doctor,
Right.
and I make no claims for any of this stuff to do anything, but I'm just telling you.
You're just saying what...
I'm telling you,
research is
I'm
done.
telling you the story of
Yeah.
exactly what happened.
Right.
And believe me, I made this mistake when I was making the machine.
Uh-huh.
And it cost me days and days and days to try to get these things to regrow. And I'm saying, you know, Tom Bearden's right about that. There has to be this pump wave that's involved. And we called it four-wave mixing. You know, Tom called it that. Not John, Tom. And so I said to myself, damn. But I never thought anything about it, Pat. I was so, you know, it was a problem having this guy there.
Right.
Taking care of this problem and that problem with him and this problem and the next problem. And, oh, by the way, I got to go over here and get this. And do you have, you know, like $200? And do you have $300 over here and $500 over here? And you could not get around how much money this. I used to just call up the CEO and say, I need $1,000, okay. And I'd get the $1,000 and one day it'd be gone. You know, he had it all gone already. And then he'd say, well, we need another $500 for this, or we need another $200 for this, or we need another $1,000 to get this, or to get me out of trouble over here, I need this. You know, and so I would do it because I was interested in,
Yeah.
I gave him my word.
Is he still around?
No, he's dead.
Yeah.
He died shortly after the lawsuit, but we'll get into that.
Oh, it's a lawsuit. Okay.
See, the thing about John Crane is he sold everything. He didn't tell anybody that he sold it. But he never gave the item that he sold. You know, so after we did all this work, all this research work on the microscope and on these, you know, trying to get this machine, but I want to go back to the doctors.
Okay.
We get it to work. Dr. Strecker verifies it. He invites 30 doctors. I gave each doctor, got a demonstration, one right after the other. In other words, got to take a clean swab, put it on the slide, got it in focus under this microscope. That doctor watched, and I say, okay, now I'm going to hit the button. Bang. Mm-hmm. Dead. They all got to see the same thing because they all got to witness it for themselves. The first thing was you potted everything. We don't know what's in there. This could be a trick. The next thing was we could never do this. We'll lose our jobs.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
and
real.
that went on and on and on, and we never. They were making too much money, you know, with this, with whatever they were
System
doing.
was, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't blame them.
Yeah.
You know, they were being pretty honest standing in that room that they were going to be, you know, that they could never get into anything like this.
Yeah.
And like I say to everybody, if you're going to do this, you got to do it on your own. It's not on my recommendation to you to do it. You know, if you're interested in it, do it.
Yeah.
Do your own research work. John didn't tell you, you know, that you're going to cure this person, because the word cure is the downfall here.
Yeah.
You can't cure anything. Because the minute you cure something, they're going to be after you. You can only mask the symptoms.
You can only treat.
Yeah, well, mask them.
Yeah.
You know, but
I don't
So-
think you can treat people if you're not a doctor either.
so what happened is after this thing worked and the doctors were in the room, I had two prototypes. I had one that I used at the microscope, and that one at the microscope I gave to Tom Bearden, and he took that back with him.
Okay.
Doris liked it and Tom liked it, and it felt good to them, so they took it, and I gave it to them. The other one, John Crane, when I wasn't there, was starting to treat people with leukemia.
Oh my God.
So, guess what?
Yeah.
One day a guy brings back his report from the doctor's office on his count or whatever it was, and the count went.
Yeah.
And Dr. Strecker, I never seen him get that mad in my whole life. I mean, he just wasn't that type of guy.
Mm-hmm.
But he lectured John Crane and says, you cannot treat people.
Yeah.
But he did it anyway. And he was charging him money, meanwhile we were paying his bills. So that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
kind of guy
Yeah.
that I was dealing with. Plus I had to drive him everywhere that he wanted to go. That was part of my deal.
Didn't he have a driving license?
Well, he didn't have a car.
Oh. Okay.
It didn't make any difference if he didn't have a driver's license. But, so I mean, I chased things, I chased machines, and I just did my best to try to work with the guy.
Yeah.
Until one day, the AMA showed up. They sent out, somebody talked, probably this guy.
Right.
And they showed up and they came there, and a good thing the machinery wasn't there. I had taken it out. After that, I had taken it and I had brought it home and put it in the closet. I just left it. Because the only thing in the shop were amplifiers and a microscope, and then what are they going to do?
So you took him out so that John Crane couldn't treat any more people?
Right.
Yeah.
Of which he got totally pissed off, and
Yeah.
he took off
Yeah.
on a bus. And so I had the locks changed on the shop. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
You know, I'm telling you, I did. He came back, he couldn't get in. The one thing that I didn't want was the AMA there.
Right. Right.
And, you know, gonna take everything. So John Crane goes back to San Diego and he writes a lawsuit, a bogus lawsuit. And he demands $20 million in the lawsuit. Which is online. Anybody can go find it online. And he never told us that he had sold the microscope to Barry Lyons.
That was another name from the past, yeah.
He never told Strecker or I that he had sold the microscope. And so Barry Lyons got a court order to come and get the microscope, of which Gamma Electronics then got the same order.
Right.
And so
And it was
we
there.
made arrangements. Crane was locked out. I wouldn't let him come back.
Right.
He had taken a bus all the way to San Diego, and then he didn't know what was going to happen to this microscope, see? Because he didn't realize that Barry Lyons had got a court order to come and get the microscope. So I remember George and a few other people picking this thing up, and the sheriff's car was parked out front to come and get it. And all the sheriff did was open his trunk, and he tells them, throw the microscope in the trunk. In other words, don't lay it down.
Yeah.
Just throw it in the trunk. You know, of course, then we were all heartbroken,
Yeah.
you know, because we didn't get to finish this microscope.
And
However,
Barry
Pat,
Lyons didn't get one either.
I was able, after we made the prism holders, I was able to light Rife's light underneath, turn the prisms, and watch the light change colors.
Okay.
And I was able to see the light through the microscope, so you know what? It might have worked. But by then, it was too late.
But surely the microscope was not part of the treatment. That was just the
No.
demonstration of how efficacy.
But you got to
the
understand, for
efficacy of it.
Rife to do what he did, he had to be able to see it alive.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be able to see this thing alive.
Right.
An electron microscope does not.
Yeah. It kills.
It's a dead specimen.
Right.
Yeah, it shows you what it looks like and everything, and how do you know it really looks like that?
Yeah.
You know, you're just seeing a still image of something that can magnify this electron microscope. Yeah, it's fine, but how do you find the right frequency for the thing if you can't see it alive?
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to remember, Rife, when he first found the frequency, I think it was for E. coli or something, or B. coli. He found the frequency, and then he noticed when he came back that these things weren't alive.
Yeah.
So he repeated the experiment with the same frequency until he
Yeah.
did it a couple hundred times.
Yeah.
And Rife, I could understand, had the patience, because the way Crane talked, that he could sit for hours and hours and hours at that microscope, running through all these frequencies on these old Kennedy machines, till he found the one that killed it. And then he would culture it 10 or 15 times to make sure that was the frequency.
Yeah.
So that's a little more of the information about John Crane. But what John Crane could never tell me that was important was, what were these frequencies? You know, and how did the real machine work, John?
Yeah.
Well, it's in the book. I said, John, anybody that looks at that diagram that's in the book can't understand that at all. Instead of a tube, there was a socket. Well, that's fine. You know, and this resistor was drawn just like the part. In other words, it was drawn just like this tip. with no value. And it went to somewhere on these sockets, right? And I kept asking him, I kept saying, okay, what's the tube? Well, you got the tube right there. And I'd say, yeah, but what was this tube? And he'd go, well, that could have been one of 3 tubes. Okay, John, what was this? Oh, that's one of those big coils. Well, where, John? Go out in my shop and I've got a bunch of coils out there. Show me what coil it was.
Yeah.
And he'd walk out in the shop and he'd look in the box and he'd go, well, it was like this one, you know, which is a big wire wound coil. And I'd say, okay, where does this hook to? I said, you can't see it in this diagram. It's not clear. Well, I can't remember.
Yeah.
So that's what you were faced with over and over and over, Pat. But when he saw this work is when those gears started to spin. And he said he had it sold. He already had 5 or 6 of them sold. He had the money, but no machine.
Well, how did he get the money?
He took
'Cause
the
he
money.
sold- yeah, he
Pre-sales.
got pre-sales, yeah.
He pre-sold it.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm saying to myself, John, you can't sell my machine.
Right.
He said, no, it's my machine. I told you how to do it. I said, John, you didn't tell me how to do this. You weren't here doing this. So, well, I told you how to do it and the frequencies and everything. I said, I'm not using the frequencies that you're talking about.
Right.
That's not how I'm doing that. And I says, plus it's got different circuitry in it. He says, yeah, but you took my old generator and you put this stuff in it. And I says, well, yeah, I did. I said, but you can't sell my machine. He says, well, I can sell that machine. And it would just went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, on and on, you know, with you can't do this and you can't do that. And I said, I'm sort of tired of all this. I said, you know, I really was interested in Rife and I really was interested in the microscope and everything. I said, but this guy's got to go, I said to myself. And Strecker came to the same conclusion. This guy's got to go, he's dangerous.
Yeah.
Because he's medically treating people, he doesn't have a license, he's not a doctor.
And he doesn't know what he's doing.
No.
Oh,
He
knew
just-
what he was doing.
Yeah, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
You know, he knew that he was getting $500 or $600
Right.
cash for each machine. He already had 5 or 6 sold. So he had a fistful of money and he
Right.
was getting ready to do whatever he was going to do. Meanwhile, I was paying his bills.
Yeah.
We were paying the electric bill down on his house. That all stopped, Pat.
Yeah.
As soon as this guy did this and the AMA showed up, that's when I called the CEO and I says, I've had it. I says, I'm not doing no more of this. I says, you can just not even bother writing the checks.
Yeah.
So then he sued us. He sued Barry Lyons. He sued Tom Bearden
What did he sue
He
Barry Lyons
sued-
for? Because he bought
for
some.
the microscope. Yeah. He sued me for a steel ruler for $20 million.
Okay.
And here's the other thing he did. At the he wrote his own lawsuit, and he filed his own liens. So he liened everybody's house. He liened everybody's house, and I had to go get this lawyer. I had to go to each of these people and ask for $500 to get this attorney to go down to San Diego to get this thrown out of court as bogus. But the lawsuit was for $20 million, and it was against unnamed on this thing. I
John
mean,
Doe, yeah.
everybody was sued in this thing that ever did anything. I think mine was for a 6-inch steel ruler that he said I took from him, which I didn't take from him because when all the stuff was picked up from the shop, all the stuff that was there that he left there was packed up in a box and nobody touched anything. I made sure of that. And I made sure that it all got sent back. And so that's John Crane.
Wow.
And it's not that he was a stupid man, Pat. He was not. This guy had some good ideas and no money to do them with. And so what he would do is he'd get somebody to come into a partnership with him.
Yeah.
But they weren't ever going to get any money.
Was a shark.
You know. Yeah, he was better than a shark, Michael. He was. I mean, he got me pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, he got me for, who knows, maybe $150,000.
Yeah.
But the amplifier company was doing real good. I think we were at probably close to $1 million a year.
What year was that, John?
That's around 83, 84, 85, right in there.
And you moved up here when?
Oh, I didn't move up here until 89.
89. Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, and even when I moved up here, I continued my research and all this. Although I didn't use it quite as much. I
Right.
mean, there were a lot of machines in between. You know, I think we even took the SSG machine and used the waveform from it on pedals to treat too,
Okay.
on ourselves. All the experiments were done on ourselves. Like that's why I never recommend. You know, I'm not giving them medical advice here.
Right.
I'm just saying.
You're just reporting what.
I'm
you
just
found
telling
yourself.
you my story
Right.
about what this machine is. Anyway, Pat, do you have any more questions?
Not right now. That was pretty fascinating stuff about John Crane, though.
Well, the story is the story, and that's exactly
Yeah,
the way I
yeah.
remember it. And I really didn't want to change anything. I mean, there's a little bit more detail to it, but I figure that gives you the basic
Yeah.
scope of this.
Yeah, well, I read a book about it a while back, and Barry Line was in there, and John Crane, and I.
Right.
That was like 20 years ago. So.
So anyway, I'm going to go back to this. This is basically what I did. Was I combined all these oscillators in what they call a mixing bus, so that the frequencies would hit against each other. In other words, so that I could generate these different frequency bands along the pump wave down here. And then once that was done, you could select the level with this amplifier that you wanted this mixing transformer to put out. Because if you look at the diagram very closely, you see that the positive line, there's a light bulb here.
Okay.
And that's if somebody shorted these electrodes, it would not burn out the transistor.
Okay.
So the light bulb would just turn on, and then what you would see with that light bulb is the frequency of the light. You know, you could see the frequency in the light because the light would chatter.
Okay.
And the pump wave, again, I'm going to point out, was mandatory in this, and you could adjust the level on the pump wave. And you didn't want amperage as far as current went. You wanted microamperes and milliamperes. You wanted to be way down because you're passing this through your body. And then what's happening is the frequencies and everything are creating these bands. And they're beating and against each other and everything, and they're making like two tuning forks. You hit one tuning fork and the other one vibrates. And so that's how you have to shatter the virus or the bacteria or whatever. So when we knew that, so we put a meter in here, and we would adjust it like maybe 2 microamps or 3 microamps, or we could take it up to 10 milliamps if we wanted to. You don't want to feel anything when the machine's running. You don't want any stinging at the electrodes like what John Crane was doing.
Okay.
If I remember right, when John Crane was treating people with a standard off-the-shelf generator, he would make the electrodes out of brass. And those people would hold the brass. And man, that brass would turn green after about a day or so.
So do you think if they were holding on to the electrodes, the sweat from their hands would turn them green?
Yeah, that's exactly what was happening, because John Crane was passing, you know, an extreme amount through them to where it would sting.
Right, right.
You don't want to feel any sting when you
Why not though?
because it's not necessary. That's just,
It's just painful and
yeah.
okay.
And you don't want to use it.
Okay.
You know, you don't want, what you want to be able to do is be able to get this into you and just have the pump wave carry it in.
Okay.
So you want to, you know, and you think about this for a minute. This is a current that's running through you, DC current. So it's going through.
Right.
It's actually going through the cells and everything.
Yeah.
And what you want to deposit, what you want to do is you want to get this in there.
Yeah. Yeah, intuitively that makes sense, because when you get a pain, you tense up.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So anyway, what we mixed in this machine, and I wrote it here, we mixed 100 hertz, 1 kilohertz, 5 kilohertz, 10 kilohertz, and 50K. That's about the max we could get at that time out of this device, out of the 555, without doing a lot of weird stuff to it. You know, building special stuff. And we used this for the fundamental, so this was the highest one. You know, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a minute. And that was the fundamental. And these were beating against the fundamental. So that's why we called it a mixing bus. And then that was being amplified by an amplifier, you know, at the time, which is, I think it was like a 2-watt or 3-watt audio amplifier that could do 150 kilohertz in bandwidth. And then, of course, it was capacitive coupled to just put the frequency into this 1K. So you could see everything mixed here on this 1K.
Okay.
And what would happen is, it would, when the pump wave turned on, it would put the DC current through it. And then it would be modulated on the current, on the DC current, and then it would, of course, it's switching on and off, so it goes on, and then you could see the frequency, and then it goes off, and it would keep doing that, and that was set at about anywhere between 7.5 and 8 hertz. Since that time, we've learned more about this pump wave, and we found out that a little bit higher might be better. So basically, this was the machine that Tom Bearden and Dr. Strecker and I built, and this is the one we would not give John Crane the schematic to.
Okay.
This is why we potted the machine, because that would have been gone, and I'd have never seen anything, and nobody would have ever been known anything.
Right.
So let me move on here with everybody, but first of all, I'm going to explain to everybody, once again, I'm not a medical doctor. I can't give you advice. I can't tell you whether or not this will work. So don't ever say, John Bedini said, this will do this. Anyway, we're going to get a little bit detailed here.
Okay.
And this is going to be a lot more technical than people think, because generating the correct frequencies from the real machine, if it wouldn't have been for Jeff Garf, as I said, getting the real machine, nobody would have never been able to figure out how this worked.
Yeah.
Because, as you asked earlier, Pat, about Richard Hoyland, you'd asked me that question.
Right.
And Richard Hoyland was Rife's engineer, and what Richard Hoyland did was he actually was hired. he went into the laboratory. Rife dialed the old Tube Kennedy equipment, which was standard off the shelf. Now, I'm going to say one thing to everybody. That at that time, the maximum frequency that these regenerative receivers did was 2 megahertz max. So, everything that Rife found had to be under the 2 megahertz.
Yeah.
Okay?
When you say found, you mean found cure.
Found in the laboratory with these viruses was under 2 megahertz. In
Right.
other words, they were in the radio band.
Okay.
They weren't 100 cycles and 400 cycles. That's all poppycock. There is no such thing.
Okay.
Audio frequencies are not going to kill anything. So there's a correct way to do this and an incorrect way to do it. And the incorrect way is to think that a signal generator is going to do it by itself, or just the fundamental frequency is going to do it by itself. It's not going to work. So I'm going to tell you that right now. Okay. Well, let's just look at this first, of what Rife and Hoyland found.
Okay.
First of all, Hoyland read the correct frequency from his master oscillator after Rife dialed it in. And the frequency that Rife found was for cancer was 1,607,450. And that's 1.6 megahertz.
Okay.
So you're not going to hear that. You're never going to hear that
Why not?
because
Audio
that's
range?
out of the audio range.
Okay.
All right? That is the highest frequency that Rife found. So, Hoyland was a pretty sharp guy.
Okay.
He says, well, if I make an oscillator and I have this fundamental frequency, and I think he did them between 3.3 megahertz at that time with the tubes and 3.8 megahertz. But one must remember that the higher these sidebands are, the more power there is. So that's why you see, you know, them going up like this, because it's generating sidebands, this machine. So he picks a fundamental frequency and he says to himself, and this is really good, really sharp. He says, I'll take Rife's BX frequency and I'll double that times 2.
Yeah.
So here it is. 1,607,450 times 2 multiplied by 2. Let's not forget that, everybody.
Right.
Multiplied by 2. And that equals 3214900, or 3.214 megahertz. See? But it's never going to come out exact.
Yeah.
Only on a few. So we have this frequency now because we doubled the cancer frequency.
And why did we double it?
We doubled it to get up to where the fundamental
Okay. Okay.
is. All right? The fundamental's sitting at 31, or 3.1 megahertz. So now we take this 3,214.900 and we subtract it from the fundamental frequency.
Okay.
And that gives us a difference frequency. See, it says difference
Yeah, yeah.
frequency. Now, here's the nice part of this. This difference frequency right here this is still too high. We're going to bring this down a little bit so that the sweep generators can get it. See?
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
if I divide this by 2, then it's really simple. I just count 1, 2, and it's going to end up right there.
Right.
If I divide it by 3, it's going to end up right there.
Okay.
If I divide it by 4, it's going to end up right there. But see, it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller.
Does that mean it's getting weaker and
Yes,
weaker?
it's getting
Okay.
weaker and weaker and weaker.
Yeah.
you want to be as close to this fundamental frequency and power as you can get.
Okay.
All right? So here's exactly what's happening, what the spectrum analyzer will look like, or close to. There's going to be some little differences, but so you can see here that this is the max, the fundamental frequency, 3.1 megahertz. And this 3.214 is actually 1607450, which is right on his cancer frequency. You see how he got it? Do you understand how he got it?
You just lost me.
Well, this is really by
That's
moving
at the third-
side bands out, the
third
third
one down.
side band,
Right.
right? This frequency out here is really this frequency here.
Right. Right. That I can see. Yeah.
So what did Hoyland do? He hid it. Nobody was ever going to figure that out. Nobody could figure.
He hit it because it was a sideband.
Well, the reason that Hoyland hid it from Rife and everybody is so nobody could duplicate the machine. But anything can be duplicated.
Right.
You know, the English bought machines, but he unwired them. So they didn't work when they got there.
Yeah.
You know, for somebody that's really interested in what the full story of this is, they need to get the Rife History Report from Jeff Garf that's on the internet, which they can get. But that's not going to tell you how to make the machine I'm going to show you about.
Right.
But it is going to explain to you this mathematics right here.
Right. Where he carried the
This is
numbers
how
from.
you get the sideband. Now, if I was to go lower here, I'd be going this direction.
So it's important to go off to the right.
Well, it doesn't make any difference
Okay.
what side it's on.
Okay.
As long as it's closest,
Okay.
it's got the most power in the upper
Yeah.
side bands.
Yeah.
Because see, these bands, the fundamental's the tallest. All right? This is the highest frequency Rife found for cancer. That's the highest one.
Frequency of,
This is a frequency in megahertz.
okay.
When he tuned his equipment, he killed it under the microscope. That was the frequency.
Right, that's his target.
So where did the 3100 come from?
That's the fundamental oscillator that's going to allow all this to happen.
Oh.
That stays constant.
Fundamental.
Yes. Says
That's the
fundamental frequency.
that's that little chip over there.
Right.
It
That's that
does
little
this.
oscillator.
I didn't
Right.
realize that the fundamental was like a machine. I thought that was your fundamental, your
I can-
basic. You know.
I can follow you to here. And,
Okay, so I'm going to go on now.
They used to call
Okay.
it like the beat frequency, didn't they?
Yeah.
Oh, what frequency?
Beat frequency.
Amateur radio operators are very familiar with sidebands. That's how come I can do this.
We used to use it in the desert in Libya.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could send out a fundamental frequency and you disturb that fundamental frequency, you get sidebands. Those sidebands then contain the information that you're looking for.
Beyond. Are you recording this?
Yes.
Okay.
Then what do you call a sideband? I mean,
Well, these are sidebands.
They
without
like
pointing
side
at that,
effects.
What is a sideband?
These are,
They're harmonics.
they're harmonics of the fundamental. Let's go over this again so
Okay.
everybody understands. What I'm looking for is this frequency, but I need an effect. I need to generate this exact frequency, but I need to sweep this frequency because cancers aren't the same today.
So when you say sweep, you mean
I
go
mean
through
sweep it.
a
I'm going to
spectrum of-
sweep it, yes.
Okay.
So, this was the highest frequency that Rife or Hoyland found for cancer. In other words, when he redid what Rife's work and said, this is why he said Rife thought he had them. Because Rife had 17,000 something, and he was reading a harmonic.
Okay.
See, these are harmonics.
Yeah, okay.
All right. So anyway, so if you take his highest frequency and you multiply it times 2, you want to get as close as you can get to this fundamental.
And when you say fundamental, you're talking about the fundamental
The very
oscillator.
fundamental oscillator that's in the machine.
They're like the original frequency.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before
Okay.
you
In
had
other words,
anything.
we are choosing a frequency where we can generate the most bands at the
Okay.
most power.
All right. Okay. Now we're getting there. Yeah.
All
And
right.
then you pick up the harmonics. It's like tuning on a guitar.
It's like tuning 2 pitchforks.
Okay.
Here. So anyway, this was his frequency. So you're going to multiply this times 2 because it's going to put you at 3214.900, which is close to this.
Right.
All right? There are other frequencies Rife had where you may have to multiply this times 5
Okay.
or times 6 to get it.
Because you can't reach it
Yeah,
otherwise.
you can't reach the virus frequency otherwise.
So you
Okay.
have to hit it with a harmonic.
Right.
Okay.
So anyway, after you do that, you multiply it times 2. This is the frequency that you're getting. Then this frequency is subtracted from this frequency, 3214,900, subtracted from 3100, gives you the difference frequency
Yeah.
of 114.900.
Yeah.
Now, where do I want this frequency to end up? I want it to end up with the most power that I can get it towards the fundamental
Okay.
without actually being on the fundamental.
Okay.
So, if I divide that right here,
Okay.
114.900 divided by 3, that gives me an audio frequency that I can use. 38.300
Okay.
hertz.
But you said audio frequency.
This is
doesn't
the
say
audio.
anything.
The audio at this frequency is going to generate this sideband.
But you said the audio doesn't kill anything.
No, the audio by itself will not kill anything.
Okay, so it's just a way of measuring.
It's to gate
Okay.
the fundamental oscillator into
Okay.
doing this. So now I've divided this by 3, and that's 38.300 hertz, right?
Okay.
Which my signal generator can do easy and my modulator can do easy.
Okay.
And it's all derived from the difference frequency.
Okay.
And since I divided by 3, it's going to end up here.
On the third.
It's going to end up on the third sideband.
Okay.
And when it ends up there, it's going to be in the high range. Say 3214900.
Yeah.
That's going to be equivalent to that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I think I understand it. I couldn't explain it, but I think I understand it.
Hoyland had to figure out a way to hide it from the world since they had nothing to patent.
Oh yeah, that escaped me.
Since there was nothing to patent, and he, you know what? He never told Rife that.
Yeah.
So Rife never understood any of this.
Yeah.
That's,
And how do they know it worked? Because Hoyland built this machine and went into his lab and tested it, and they sold them. And they worked.
Where's Hoyer now? He's dead too.
He's dead.
Yeah.
And he wished that he never took the $10,000
For selling those.
for selling it, you know, from Fishbein, which was the head of the AMA at the time.
Oh. Okay.
There's a lot to
Yeah,
this,
there
Pat.
is. It's a pretty dense story.
This is dense material.
Yeah.
so when you're saying frequency then, you're actually talking about sound frequency, like audio frequency.
Well, Michael, I'm going to show you when he's over here with the
No,
camera.
like a radio frequency is.
Yeah.
What is that? What is a
There was nothing that Rife found that was past 2 megahertz.
I understand the math. What I don't understand is the vocabulary.
No, listen. There was nothing that Rife found that was past 2 million cycles.
Right. This is on.
That's 2 megahertz.
This is using the virus microscope.
Yeah,
Right.
that's using the microscope.
Okay.
Oh, so he.
They were all in the
Found
radio.
where he could kill them off.
Yes.
The highest he had to go was 2,000.
Okay,
That was it.
that's a good question to ask.
Right. Okay.
But
I got this one.
You can ask that one, yeah.
I gotta figure this shit out.
there was nothing that he found, Michael, that was above the 2 megahertz band. And that's kind of amazing because you think about how big is this virus? It's not very big.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, how do we know that that frequency, a harmonic in there somewhere wasn't actually killing it, which is higher yet?
Yeah.
See, the scope can't follow it very well
Right.
because it's sweeping.
Right.
But if you saw me when I stopped the sweep,
Right.
and I say, Michael, we're going to just dial in the cancer frequency,
Right.
because here's what he found.
Right. I understand the sweep and how it'll find where it needs to go.
Yeah,
I
the
understand
spectrum
that.
analyzer is the only thing that's going to be able to show you that.
Right. That's right. That's right. Now let me ask.
That's
you,
like having a super microscope.
Yeah, exactly. It's like having a super microscope. Only
Yeah.
you're not seeing, you know, the cracks in the concrete.
See, Pat, it was all about hiding what the real frequencies were from the world.
Right.
Yeah, and that's a vital piece of information to put in there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you know that, all you have to do is figure some way to get in there and sweep that in there and
Yeah.
It doesn't make any difference what frequency I use as long as, because I got my spectrum analyzer,
That's right.
as long as I hit it, because I'm telling the machine, yeah, it doesn't make any difference what I put in there. I can dial that machine anywhere I want. I can bring it closer or further.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it closer.
Right. It's your
Yeah.
microscope. It's your microscope.
Yeah, well, I look at it differently than what Jeff Garf and the rest of them. I look at this totally different.
Let me ask you just for my information, like when you're talking about radio frequencies,
Yeah.
you know, the
AM band.
AM band goes up to about what, 1600?
What? Yeah. That's it.
Right, that's the end of it, right. And where are we? We're at like the maximum is 2000, which is
Now you know why he chose 3 megahertz fundamental, because he wanted to be 2 above it,
right.
and why he wanted to double the cancer frequency and then subtract and get a difference.
Because he didn't want to be messing.
No, because he wanted to
mixing it.
build an audio oscillator
Yeah.
and not tell anybody what the frequency was. There
Right.
was no such thing as a frequency
It was
counter.
his version of potting it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
except he couldn't do it, he had tubes.
right. but I mean,
Why is the limit at 1600 on AM?
That was the highest. The cancer was the highest. Here's something unique when you look at history. All the radio engineers that worked for AM stations very rarely ever got sick. See, it doesn't make any difference if it's a gas tube or
Right.
it's electrodes,
Right.
as long as you can get that into you. Let's roll over this again,
Okay.
since everybody had questions in the room.
Okay, Stevie Wonder.
All right. First of all, the highest frequency that Rife found for cancer after Hoyland did the calibrations, in other words, came in as his engineer and had Rife dial the frequency, and then he read the frequency off his master oscillator. So he said to people within the company, he only thought that he had the frequencies. Rife was actually in some cases reading a harmonic, which would have been way out here somewhere. And he wrote that on his notes. Later, he gave a list, and Rife corrected these frequencies. However, whatever happened to the frequencies between Rife, the trial, the people involved, and John Crane, no one knows.
okay.
All right? So let's go over this again. Hoyland, first of all, had to protect the company because he was a businessman and Rife was not.
Yeah. Okay.
So to keep people from figuring out exactly how this machine worked, this is the method. If I take his frequency, that's the highest one, 1.6 megahertz, we'll call it, and we double that, we multiply that, we get this number closest to the fundamental oscillator, which we have chosen so that we can get the highest power bands.
Okay.
And we subtract that, the 3100 from this, we get a difference frequency right here.
Yeah.
Now, that's still too high for us to work with an audio oscillator.
Okay.
Because, see, it's over 100 kilohertz. So, wouldn't it be easier for me to divide this by 3 times and use this audio frequency of 38,300? I can do that easy on my generator.
So by dividing it, you're still staying true to the original.
Absolutely, because the math
Yeah.
is going to divide it. And since I divided it by 3 times, I'm going to be 3 over. 1, 2, 3.
Right. Okay.
So when I go to this with a spectrum analyzer, guess what frequency I see? I see this frequency.
Yep.
But Rife said you could be within 1/10 of 1 meter on error.
What
That's
do you mean 1/10 of 1?
1/10 of 1 meter
Like
The
a
wave-
meter in
the wave-
in cycles.
Oh, in cycles. Okay.
Yeah. So if I use a sweep generator, and I set it to do a sweep, I'm going to hit it no matter what I do,
Yeah. Okay.
because this thing's going to be changing, right? Now, if I divide this by 4, Pat, then I move over 1, 2, 3, 4,
Right.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
And it gets progressively weaker.
Yes, but I still end up,
In that.
yes,
Yeah. Okay.
with what Hoyland found.
Right.
Now, isn't that pretty sneaky on Hoyland?
Yeah.
Because if now I say, okay, I built one machine here, and this was my fundamental frequency, and now I build another machine that's at 3.3 megahertz, these are all going to change.
Yeah.
And nobody's ever going to know what this frequency is here until they do the math. And so now we have done the math. Everybody should understand how you do this.
But would it make a difference if you had the wrong? I guess it would, but not if you swept.
Not
it,
if
right?
you sweep it.
Right.
See,
So
my
does it really
thing
matter? Is that what you're saying?
is I agree with everybody out. I agree with Jeff Garf, but then I don't agree. Because it doesn't make any difference as long as I end up with this frequency.
Yeah. In your sweep.
And it's gated in the sweep.
Right. Okay.
Because
So
I'm setting,
As long as you end up with that frequency or a harmonic of it.
yeah, which could be out here,
Yeah.
because it may move out 8 places or 5 places or whatever. Because there are frequencies on the Hoyland machine where they're out here,
Okay.
but it still works.
Yeah.
All right? So basically, when we look at the spectrum analyzer, this wave shape will change a little bit. But what we're going to see is this fundamental frequency, and I'm going to actually show you on the spectrum analyzer.
Okay.
You're going to actually see this, and you're going to see then what happens when you put the sweep in, and we're going to lock the spectrum analyzer by dot to show how many times it actually hits this cancer frequency during the sweep, which nobody has ever seen. I haven't seen it. I'm sure that, it's possible that somebody's done this.
John, does that mean that if you're looking for a particular cancer in a particular person, you can use the analyzer and find where that cancer resides and then target that?
No, see, it's not going to make a difference. There's so many different cancers. There's probably 27 or maybe 29 different cancers. They're all going to be at a little bit different frequency, like the papilloma virus. That may not be right at Rife's frequency right here,
Right.
unless you have the microscope
Then you can zero in on
and
the
see
exact
it.
frequency.
You're just stabbing yourself in the dark.
That's
So
what
by
I was asking.
sweeping,
By
you're covering all
sweeping,
bases.
it's rolling over all the frequencies.
Right.
Right, okay.
You see? So sooner or later, you're going to hit your target,
Yeah.
even if you were off.
Just a quick question. The y-axis, what are the units on the y-axis?
Well, these are your dB levels
Oh, dB
of your
levels. Okay.
sideband and your
Okay.
fundamental frequency of what it's actually transmitting.
So they're
out.
in dBs then?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
At
that's,
least that's what the spectrum analyzer is going
Right.
to show you. This could be power, this could be wattage. This could be 20 watts here, and this could be 10 watts here, or 5 watts, or 4 watts,
yeah,
you know, depending. And then, of course, what you're seeing down here is the fundamental frequency of 3.1, which is the biggest one, right? And then as you move over, you're seeing 3.2. See, and you're coming over here to 3.214.
right.
So when this hits this, it equals this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
John, can you explain to me, if you don't know what that 1607 frequency is, with the spectrum analyzer, how do you know when you have
Well, then you
have
shouldn't.
found your range that you're actually killing the cancer?
If you don't know, let me just say this to everybody. If you don't know what this is, and you don't know how to use the spectrum analyzer, then don't do this,
Yeah.
Okay.
because you cannot do it.
Yeah.
You won't be able to do it. You see, I'm pretty precise in what I do. I just don't believe that you buy something off the internet and just because somebody says it's doing this, that it's actually doing this. No, no, no. Not John.
Yeah.
John
I
wants
wasn't
to.
suggesting that.
No, no, I know. John doesn't want to build anything that he can't prove to you that that's what it's doing.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so therefore I'm a sticker when it comes to this. In other words, it better end up where we say it is, or we're going to change a setting there and find out what's going on.
Yeah.
Because there are many settings that will give me this frequency once I have it.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I'm going to show you is I'm going to ask the analyzer to give me this fundamental frequency. And as you can see at the very top, let's see if I can move this out. Actually, I like it better over here where you can really see it. Okay. As you can see that there's your fundamental frequency. And if I tell it to mark it, it's at 3.1 megahertz as I've drawn on the paper over there. And of course, if I move out in these bands, you're going to see this frequency change on the marker. And the frequency that I'm looking for is that 3148308 megahertz is the cancer frequency.
Okay.
So I'm going to move this out till I get to 314. I'm looking to be right on it. As close as I can get to it, see it? See, I'm very close to it right there. I'm within 1/10 of 1 meter right now. 3148308 megahertz. All right, now watch. What happens when I tell it to sweep? Now, can you get what it's doing here? It's gating. right here, the frequency from the audio generator is gating this. This ripple you see is this pump wave here. And that's what's giving you this ripple, because this is a small DC current. Okay?
Okay, so the top scope is the pump wave.
This top scope is showing you the actual frequency of it being gated, and when this collapses down in between it, you can see the gate. You see how it goes down in there?
Uh-huh.
But the thing about it is since it's being pumped, may not be, there you go. There, it's being gated right here. And then the pump wave is in here. So you can actually see that, if I can bring it down. So these are the packets. Here to here, the gate. Here to here is another packet, and that's giving me these side bands. So as you can see right here, I'm looking for the BX cancer frequency. So I'm using the spectrum analyzer, and you can see here that I've got the most power here closest to the fundamental.
So the little dot riding on top of the spike
Is the frequency.
Is the frequency that you've marked that in the machine.
Yeah, well, I've asked the machine to tell me what it is,
Right,
because
right.
watch here as I go, watch this frequency. See, that's way too much.
Right.
So what I want to do is I want to get within 1/10 of 1 meter.
Okay, so you're I see. You're moving
Okay,
the
so
dot
I'm
up.
907 now.
Right.
So see where my dot is there?
Right, yeah, it's not quite there.
Okay, now watch. I can take my signal generator over here. Now you watch. And what I want to do is I want to go back here to square. And I go back to frequency. And as I change this frequency,
I can't see
Tony,
through your-
you watch the dot. See?
Yeah.
Now I'm right on it, aren't I?
Yep.
See? So now I can leave the generator. I can tell you the exact frequency with this fundamental, and the pump wave is 49.80 kilohertz.
Okay.
So now I can go here, sweep, and I can go to the linear sweep, and I can say sweep those frequencies. And look at that. And see, if you really think about it, it's over at the third band.
Mm-hmm.
See?
Yep.
So this is why I disagree. And see what it's doing here? You can see the pump wave as it gates. Watch this very closely. When it goes down to low frequency. And I'll point out the gate. There's the gate and the pump wave.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, so now you can see that I can just about dial anything that I want to dial. Now what I want to show you is I'm going to disconnect this, and I'm going to show you the generator that I recommend. And like I said, this was only $100. And this is a DDS generator. But let's turn this off so you can see, get a good picture of the fundamental frequency. See it?
Mm-hmm.
That's at 31.
Right.
3.1. So now watch when I turn this generator on. Watch this. Watch what's going to happen.
Okay, why don't you explain what did happen?
Well, it's the same as that laboratory generator, and it's like $100. And it's generating all of Rafe's frequencies.
Because you pre-programmed this.
Yes, I pre-programmed this to do the sweep from 10 kilohertz to 70 kilohertz.
Okay, that's this little guy.
Yeah, which is the Velman.
Can you hold it up just a little? Yeah. That's
And since-
$100.
Yeah, it's a $100 unit. And the thing about this is it's already pre-programmed. This is fixed. You don't have to worry about it. And You can change the voltage here if you want, like we're at 1.3 volts because of the audio circuit in here.
Right.
And it's in a square wave operation, so we're generating the most bands, see,
Right.
all at once.
Yeah.
Okay. So we,
Done?
yeah. So I'm going to move on now to the next section, and that's going to be what the frequencies were that Rife used, that Hoyland wrote down. And once again, I'm going to say that Hoyland hid these by doing this sideband method that we talked about earlier. And then, of course, you saw in the earlier segment how the sidebands show up on the spectrum analyzer. Okay, so these were the known frequencies in hertz. So you can see the lowest frequency here is 191.803 hertz. And that's in the radio band. So that would be at the very, very, in fact, that's below the radio band. All right. And then we move up to the next one, which is anthrax. The bacteria is getting bigger. Mm-hmm. So this frequency is getting lower.
Okay.
So the lowest one is anthrax at 139,200.
Okay.
And then we go to B or E. coli rod at 416,510. Now this is, after you multiply this frequency out, this is what you get that you're going to subtract from the fundamental frequency. And then you're going to get this different frequency here, and then ever how many times you divide it, you're going to get this audio frequency. So I think I've covered that earlier. So as you can see, the highest known frequency that Hoyland knew about, along with Rife after he remeasured it, was the cancer frequency, which is 1607450. Mm-hmm. And again, it's showing you that if you do this, now one thing that I have to point out, that the carrier frequency here is at 3.1 megahertz. And so the max audio frequency that I'm going to run to is between 10,000 and 70,000. So when you put 70,000 into the sideband calculator, which is going to print out a paper, and it's going to tell me exactly what these frequencies are that I need to do my sweep in. So that's all part of in the little paper.
Which paper?
Well, it's in the little paper that's in the booklet.
Oh, okay.
And the thing is that what we want to do here is, as I pointed out earlier, see, I am not a firm believer that I absolutely have to have the frequency exactly like this.
Because you're going to sweep it?
Because I'm going to sweep it, and I'm going to find it, and I've got a spectrum analyzer, and I can see it. Mm-hmm. So I can see where this frequency is going to end up.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I can put a dot there, and I can sweep, and I can see how many times it hits that. Maybe we should revisit that in a minute.
Okay.
Over there so that they can see what I'm talking about. But see these audio frequencies over here in the chart? These are all the audio frequencies that I need to do. In other words, in my sweep. That's why I'm sweeping the sine wave generator or the square wave generator between this frequency and the highest frequency.
So 31 is the lowest one and 69 is the highest?
Yeah, is what it looks like right in here.
Okay.
And see, that's typhoid. And see these little blue indicators?
Yeah.
That's indicating it's a virus to me.
Okay.
So the two most important are the two most dangerous. The most dangerous is tuberculosis, because you not only have to kill the rod, you have to kill the virus. There's a rod and there's a virus. Rife called it a rod.
Okay.
Looks like a rod in the microscope.
Yeah, in the microscope. So it's mandatory that you do both of these frequencies at the same time, or one right after the other. That's why the sweep. All right, because you can see there's not much difference here between them. The virus is here.
Right.
This is where we're going to end. This is what Rife determined, or Hoyland determined, was the frequency in the lab. And the other thing that I'm going to point out is Hoyland, when he made the sideband machine, it was tested in the laboratory. And then it was given to the doctors and it was tested so that they know that this method works.
Okay.
So here's all your difference frequencies in the chart.
One quick question.
Yeah.
I see under typhoid rod, you've got 2 numbers.
Yes. I got the 2 numbers because you got to do these 2 numbers.
Okay.
You have to do, this is the only known virus. You know, tuberculosis is the only known thing that if you kill the rod, what's going to happen is the patient's going to die, because then the virus is going to take over and it's going to eat you up.
Okay.
So you know there's 2 frequencies there from Rife's original
Yes.
lab work?
Yes. Yes, and Rife stated in the movies and the films and the talks that you must kill the rod and you must kill the virus. So he developed a machine that did those 2 frequencies at one time. There's the 2 numbers. See that, Tony?
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's the 2 numbers.
Yeah.
Now it's correct.
that's the rod and the virus.
Yeah, that's why I got the blue there.
Yeah.
So I see what happened as I went down
Yeah.
the chart. I just transposed a number.
Okay.
Anyway, this is what was known.
Okay.
Period. This is all they knew about. There were probably 15 more that who knows where that went.
Right.
So anyway, I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to go through this one more time. These are the only known frequencies for these viruses that we have today. The rest of the notes have been lost.
Okay.
Nobody knows where they're at, so we don't know,
Okay.
because the machines are gone and nobody can find the other machines. The only machine that was found was the one that I suspect was in LA that Jeff Garf got from Dr. Lowe.
Okay.
And I've never seen anything. I've heard about it and I see some spectrum analysis, but my interest would be in, with that machine, would be to run it and have the real spectrum analyzer and see if
Yeah.
you're absolutely going to end up.
Who was Jeff Garf again?
Jeff Garf was very interested in Rife in the beginning, and he's the one that wrote the history of Rife
Okay.
in the PDF file on the internet. And when I was talking to him, he explained that he finally found a machine and he was able to figure out what
Yeah.
was going on with it. But through my research, well, first of all, Jeff Garf, let's just say what he does. He produces the GB4000 and the MOPA amplifier. Those are two things that you can buy right now on the internet.
And they're
Right, but there's no guarantees or anything, because remember, we're not medical doctors.
Right.
We're only reproducing this guy's work, and if you want to do experiments with it, then that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about it is this work requires, I would really recommend the person doing this kind of work to have a spectrum analyzer. Or they're not going to be able to see. You're just second guessing.
Yeah.
You're saying, yeah, we got the wave shape on the scope. The scope is not telling you what bands it's generating. So I think what we'll do is we'll cut away from here for a minute and we'll go back to the analyzer.
Okay.
All right, so anyway, we're here at the analyzer, And what we want the machine to do right at this point in time, and I'm going to point out some parts in the machine here, and this is very important because this is your fundamental oscillator.
This is your replication of the your version.
Well, this is programmed to do the,
No, but this is a Rife machine.
yes, this is a Rife,
Built by Bedini.
yes, along with this entails the pump wave in it. So if I turn this on, right away, you can see this appear. That's your fundamental frequency. Now, if you look at this we know that this is the cancer frequency because we've determined that by over there on the other chart. So now if we hit the marker, well, let's auto it and hit the marker. Okay, so there's our fundamental frequency, and see all this? We're not modulating at all. So now if we hit the marker button, it appears there, and it's telling us, okay, we're sitting at, see right at the peak of this wave, we're sitting at 3.099999, which is 3.1 megahertz.
Okay.
All right, now, when the frequencies are put into the machine, it's going to modulate these against the RF amplifier, which is going to create sidebands here.
So this is that little $100.
Yeah.
What do you call that thing?
Generator. And see, you could see that the sidebands appeared for a second. Watch, they'll pop in there when the oscillator comes down a little bit. See them?
Yep.
Okay, now, so what we're going to do with this is we're going to, actually we want to zoom out because we want to see what all of them that it's generating. Okay. So see all the sidebands that it's generating?
Mm-hmm.
So what we can do is we can take this marker and we know what the cancer frequency, we know it's 3.14. So let me have that chart just for a minute there, Michael. And I'll just point it out here. What we're looking for is we're looking for the BX sarcoma virus, and that's 3214900. So all we have to do is move this marker. Okay, so we want 3214. 832, we're within 1/10 of 1 meter right there. And you can see that now the spectrum analyzer shows you this dot. And see, it's hitting those peaks as it goes towards the fundamental. And each time it hits that peak, you're actually hitting the cancer virus. So we'll bring this down. Sometimes it's hard to adjust this, but we'll get it. We don't need that much attenuation. Or I want you to get a good picture of this so you can see where they're going. And I'll zoom this in a little bit. See if I can get this where I want it. See all the bands that are showing up in there, Tony?
Mm-hmm.
So let's get it out here. My electrodes are goofing me up here, so let me get this right here. I want to hold them together so you can see. As it generates those bands, as it moves, see that dot moving up and down? It's hitting the cancer frequency at those every time that dot appears. But it's also hitting all these others. So if we chose another frequency, like, let's see if we can go down here. Marker. Two 9 1 5. So we're at 2915. So we're at B or E. coli rod every time that dot hits on top of one of those peaks. See it? So it's sweeping the whole band.
Yeah.
So we could move this in. So we get a little better picture of this as these sweep out. There you go. And this really machine wants to be in resonance, so it wants you to be on the machine, see it? So it's already hit it there, it's hit it there. It's hit B and E. coli there. So now if we just take another one to show you that it's hitting them all, 30594. So we just take the marker and go to 30. Now we are hitting, every time that dot hits this peak, we are hitting BY sarcoma, which would be skin cancer. If you could put it right on there. You follow me? Mm-hmm. So let's pick another one and see where we are. Okay, 2.
So just to, you said you've kind of shorted out the electrodes here, or the
Well,
pads?
I want the electrodes. See, they want to be hooked to something that
Right.
you're seeing the pump wave and you're seeing noise enter. They want to be hooked to you. See, so you get a perfect wave, watch,
Okay.
as it comes out.
To complete the circuit.
Yeah, see it?
Yeah.
Now you're seeing the real sideband waves. And it doesn't make any difference. What I found out with this is that if I put these together like that, it shows you a pretty good picture, see?
Yeah.
And that's why I have detuned the circuit. I've detuned the circuit in this machine for the simple fact is once it's on you, it tunes.
Right.
And I can make this as small or as wide as I want. Right now I'm in the noise, but let's see if I can get this amp. There you go. That's a pretty good picture of how they go out. See?
Uh-huh.
You're starting at a real low frequency and you're ending up at a real high frequency. So what I want to do is I'll put this under here for a second so it stays there. And I'll pick another one. I'll pick pneumonia or spinal meningitis. That would be at 2988.034. So I'll hit the marker. 298. Eight. .107, but see, since I'm sweeping, see, I'm hitting it all the time there. I hit it twice here. Once there, and once when it moves there. I actually hit it a couple of times, see it? They're down lower here. So now what we should do is probably span it in there so you can see it hit it right at the top of the peak when it gets right at the right frequency. See?
When it's at the top of the peak of the
Yeah,
sound
see?
wave, that's when it hits it?
See it hit it?
Yeah,
Now watch as it grows.
it grows into a vertical.
See it hit it there, it hit it there. It's gonna hit it there,
There you go.
and then it's gonna go down here and collapse. And then it's gonna come back and sweep again and hit it,
Right.
and hit it. And that would be your pneumonia, according to Hoyland. Now, let's go down and see if we can get syphilis, which is at 3.154. So we'll go to the marker 4 there. We're within 1/10. Now you can see that it's coming along and it's hitting it right there. See it? Then it's going to grow again, so it's hitting it every time it hits. See how it sweeps by?
Mm-hmm.
So it's sweeping the range, and that's what Rife said, or the doctor said, that they had to sweep the machine back and forth, and then they got great results. So we're just doing it to show you that the sweep is hitting these frequencies. I think we can close this down. Now, this, of course, you can see the sweep here and the gating effect. And this little wiggle that you're seeing here, see the gating effect in there? That little wiggle you're seeing is this pump wave. Okay, so if we took the scope, and we'll go over to the pump wave. That's your pump wave. Yeah, let's go over here. And you see how the pump wave is making it move up and down? Might be really hard to see that on there. But it's that wiggle that's in there. Can you get that, Tony? So let's come out of the oscillator and look at it. Okay, there's the pump. So you can see the wave. Mm-hmm. So it's just on and off, on and off, on and off. Mm-hmm. And that pump wave is then being sent out to the electrodes. And you can see that in the pump wave are the frequencies.
So that's
the whole band of frequencies.
That's what would be going into your body.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's using that little bit of DC current to push it through your body.
When you say gating effect, does that mean where it goes into the body?
Yeah. See, the most important part is, are you generating these sidebands? And this is why it's important to see the spectrum analyzer, so that you know that it's actually hitting it. And every time you see this jump, that's the pump wave. That's this ripple effect. It's there. You see it moving up and down? Mm-hmm. Okay, and it's very important. See, I just changed the resonance of it, and I changed the resonance down here because I'm holding the electrodes. So now I've got clean waves, see it? When it pops up, watch. If I let go of it and I separate the electrodes, then I'm just going to get what I get. It's going to bounce around. Because there's a pump wave involved and it's pumping it. That's a DC current. And then if I take the electrodes and I put them together like this, you can see my waves are cleaner. Shows you more.
Yeah, more regular.
Yeah. And each time that dot is going to the peak of this, right?
Right.
Then I'm hitting that
That's the
exact frequency.
It's on the peak.
Yeah, now I think the lowest one is 139. So that would be 3062. There, 465. So now every time that hits on the peak, like right there, mm-hmm. Remember this is the lowest one. Mm-hmm. So it's going to hit it one time. Actually 2 times, 3 times. Mm.
Yeah, it's moving a lot slower.
Yeah. And that would be anthrax.
Wow.
So I'm hitting the whole spectrum of what I have here.
Yeah.
And I can change that by changing the generator.
Right,
In other words, if I change it from 70,000 hertz to something else,
right,
then my sideband calculator is going to change.
right, it changes.
And what I'd like to do, if possible, Tony, is it possible to do the computer screen so I can show you the sideband calculator?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, what are we doing now, John?
I'm going to run the sideband calculator. Now, what I want to tell everybody is you can only get this calculator off the right groups. You have to join the group to get it. So here I'm going to run the calculator and show you. Here's the carrier frequency, which I had over on the other chart. So I'm going to put 31 right there. That gives me 3.1 megahertz. And see, my max audio frequency is going to be 70,000. So I'm just going to make that 7. And then I'm going to tell it to calculate, and these numbers are going to change. So now you can see that the BX frequency still maintains 3.214900, and the difference frequency is 114, which I showed you in the calculation. Audio 1 is 57, but if I put this back to 40, it's going to be where I told you it was on the chart over there. Now, if we choose the sarcoma frequency, right, and we tell it, give us the graph, you can see this is what the wave looks like, gated, which you saw there. And then it's going to be 1, 2 here, over.
Right.
So if I divide it by 3, it's going to be here. If I divide it by 4, it's going to be there.
So who put all this stuff in the Rife group then?
There was a computer programmer that made this program after they figured out how the machine actually
Okay.
worked.
It's nice.
And so it actually works out pretty good, because if I get out of here and I put this back to 40, say I only want to run my generator to 40,000, and I recalculate for this same cancer frequency, and I go to the graph, I'm exactly where I want to be when I divide by 3.
Nice.
1, 2, 3. So if I change the generator, as long as I get this number,
Yeah.
as long as I get this number, which is 3214.900, you see here, it's saying it's divided by 3 here.
Uh-huh.
So my spectrum analyzer is showing me those numbers, and what's being, once again, here's the fundamental frequency. We'll mark it. We'll auto this first, and then we'll bring it in. So we know that's it, right? And then we'll span this in so that we can see there's nothing being generated. In other words, we're not generating anything here.
Right.
All right, then we mark this. It's telling me, according to my span, where my generator is, see? So there's my fundamental frequency. All right? And then I say to it, start generating the sidebands. There you go. See, my fundamental frequency is not changing.
No.
What's changing are the sidebands. So now if I just say marker, and I know that the cancer frequency is going to be over at the 3rd band, so that's going to be 214 or 3214, which is going to be here. 3214.
Right.
I'm within still 1/10 of 1 meter. You can see the dot, how many times it hits the actual frequency. See it?
Right.
So then we can just span this in, Tony, so we can get a tighter view of how many times this is going to happen. See?
Mm-hmm.
So I know it's right.
Hitting it regular.
Yep. And that's all I have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, this is going to change. If I take these off and I put one here and one here, then you're going to see a much
Right.
more detailed wave. See it?
And more regular.
Yeah. Because it's now in tune with me.
Right. Yeah, it's performing nicely.
Yes. And the jumping up and down is this pump wave here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think everybody gets the idea.
Right.
And just to reiterate,
Yeah.
this here is your solid state version
Yes.
of the Rife machine,
Of the Rife machine. And
which we'll get into later on.
yeah, well, it's in the book,
Yeah,
in the booklet.
yeah.
But like I said, the important part was programming this for a fundamental frequency and then getting the audio circuit to, and the pump wave, to put the DC current through you.
It's beautiful.
So if you take the generator off, you should come back to the fundamental frequency. And the pump wave is a square wave. See? Now by changing this, right? By changing the span, I'm either going to come down 1.66 or I'm going to go up. See? So the thing is to auto it, and let's find out where the marker says it is. And there it is. 3.100000, so it's right on.
Right.
And there's the wave.
Beautiful.
And you can see the pump now because you can see it going up and down.
Right. Right.
That's the DC pump.
And that's the sweep.
Nope, it's not
No.
sweeping. It's just a one steady frequency, the
I see,
fundamental.
because it's up at the top. Of
Yeah,
the,
what you're seeing there is the pump wave pump it.
I see.
So the minute you add the generator to it, watch what's going to happen there.
Then it sweeps.
Well, watch as soon as it comes on.
Yeah.
You see, and then you can see what it's doing here.
Right.
As it moves to the, see how many bands it's generating?
Yeah.
And so that's saying that please zoom out so you get more. The machine can actually tell you, okay, zoom out a little bit
Right.
more. Now there it goes.
Mm-hmm.
See, it's going. Go zoom in. And we'll get these so that we get a nice wave, see?
Mm-hmm.
And it says it spans at 200 kilohertz. So mark it. There's the, notice the fundamental frequency is not changing at all,
Right.
even though it's being pumped.
Right.
So I think everybody's got a pretty good idea of how this is working.
Right.
So we'll go back and I'll explain it one more time over here. And then we'll move on to the circuits. Okay, so now we're going to move on to more technical in the Rife machine, the building blocks for the Rife machine. So the first building block is the fundamental oscillator. Now this is a programmable oscillator that you have to buy and you have to program it. So you need a programmer to program it. And it's programmed and it's a CCP-C4, which you can get at DigiKey. And I think you give them a little bit and they'll program that frequency for you.
Who? DigiKey?
DigiKey Electronics. They're on the internet. And it's very important to remember with this type of CMOS oscillator, I think it does CMOS and TTL, and that you regulate it to 5 volts, so you need a regulator in the circuit, and you can see that right here. And you need the filter capacitor here of 1,000 mics on the input from the 12 volt source. You want to keep this as stable as you can from the 12 volt lithium cells. And this is giving you your fundamental frequency in a square wave. Now, whether we're using square waves or we're using sine waves, we're still going to get the same thing. We're just going to get more of them with a square wave because it's odd harmonics. And to protect this guy, this oscillator, we built a buffer circuit for it, which takes the RF and buffers it so that there's a safety factor, so that it comes out of the emitter at low impedance. So it's going to drive the RF circuit from this point here. And these are just common variety transistors. This can be a 2N2222, a 2N4401, or anything that's got, you know, a high HFE, which is high frequency gain bandwidth. And so this becomes your buffer circuit, and this is going to drive your RF amplifier. Now, the RF amplifier is just done really simple. It's biased with a 10K resistor. It's got an inductor where it belongs. It's got a resistor in the emitter, and it's got a pi network, so it's tunable. In my case, I detuned it. I detuned it for the simple reason is when you touch it, it goes into tune. So it's set to go into tune the minute you touch the electrodes.
Okay.
To give you the best results. And so this transistor here is very important because this is a regular RF transistor, and it needs to have a heat sink on it, which I'll show you when I bring out the machine in a few minutes, and I'll point out all the what the components are. These are trimmable capacitors that adjust this pi network. Now normally this network would be higher than 22 microhenries, but since I wanted it detuned, because I want you to make up part of the resonance circuit, I made this as small as I could get away with. But I made this as big as I could get away with for current through here. So the thing about this RF amplifier is this RF amplifier must include the pump wave and the modulating wave. And you can see right down here at the base, there's a 2.5 millihenry choke. And that choke then connects over here to the audio amplifier, like this. So when you put the audio frequency in here, this gates this transistor, which puts a space in between what the oscillator is putting out from the buffer in here. So it's like it shorts it to ground for a minute and comes back. So this allows you to generate the sidebands. This circuit here and this. This is how you generate the sidebands, by putting the audio frequency in here. But it's not what I would call an audio frequency from 20 to 20 kilohertz, because it's 10 kilohertz to 70 kilohertz is how you're going to get Rife's frequencies. So this amplifier has to be capable of doing 70 kilohertz. In other words, there can't be anything where it's not the same as if it's doing 10 kilohertz. It has to be flat. The next part of the circuit that's very important is the pump wave oscillator. And if you look at this very closely, the 555 timer sends out a pulse at about 14 hertz. So it's a square wave at 14 hertz, and turns this transistor on, lets the current go through it, And this, of course, this piece ends up being connected right here. Now to limit to not have any of the RF come back through the circuit to the oscillator, there's a choke here. That's also selected for minimum. So that when you touch it, you know, you're in resonance. The 47K resistor limits the current that can go through your body. Because you only want 2 milliamps or 3 milliamps. You don't want anything more than that. Because the DC is what allows the frequency to get in. And this is why this is really not like a Rife machine. It's more like a Peoria machine. And so I call it Bedini, Rife, Peoria, or whatever you want to call it. But this is what allows you to get the signal through your body, is this pump wave. And without this pump wave, then you're at the limit of however far the RF can penetrate in your body. And that's not going to be very far, because maybe about 2 inches. I mean, you can change this around and make it more powerful to where it'll light a light bulb, but I'm not into burning anybody. You know, I don't want anybody to get hurt or anything like that by getting an RF burn. RF burns aren't funny. They're blotches that never go away in your skin. You know, so that's exactly why I've done the circuit like this, is limiting this thing to maybe 1 watt or 2 watts maximum under resonance. It's 20 volts peak to peak, so I mean, it's got plenty of RF. And the only other thing you could do with this is, if you wanted to boost this, then you'd build an RF amplifier and put it here. And you would burn yourself up. You know, sooner or later you're going to put too much RF, and you're going to feel that.
What is a millihenry?
Millihenry.
Yeah.
Millihenries, they're chokes.
Okay.
They're in millihenries and microhenries, and it would be a choke that big, and what it is wound wire around a ceramic, and it becomes an inductor. And
Yeah,
so
but
that
they-
inductor is basically sitting right here in the circuit.
Okay.
And then the resistor's sitting right here, and then there's another inductor that's sitting right here. And trimmable capacitors are, you know, they're a little bit different. They're,
Well, just backing up, an ohm is like a measurement of resistance.
Yeah.
A Henry is a measurement of capacitance.
of inductance.
Inductance, pardon me.
Yeah.
Inductance.
Anyway, a trimmable capacitor, see, has a,
It's tiny, yeah.
yeah, it's a very tiny thing in the circuit. And it allows you to adjust the capacitance, and that's why you see, you know, these arrows through these
Okay,
capacitors. And these are actually sitting in the circuit like this.
Yeah.
So see, usually when I draw things, it's a circuit the way I'm gonna lay it out.
Yeah.
Exactly the way I'm gonna lay it out.
Okay.
So basically your pump wave looks like this. It comes on at 0, goes up to its 12 or 11.5 volts. And then the RF oscillator, you know, this pump wave, when it starts to pump this, it ends up here with a DC pulse. And what ends up on the DC pulse is this, which are the sidebands.
Okay.
And so now it's on the DC. And that's how you get it in there. That's how you get it into the body.
John, could you just read off the values on
Yeah.
the pump wave circuit? One of them's a little bit small.
Okay. The 12 volt line. Okay, this capacitor right here is
Yeah,
0.47.
0.47, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's 100 ohms, 10K, and 4.7 microfarads.
Right. Yeah, got it.
And that sets you at about 14 hertz. And then the transistor, just a garden variety, 2N4401 or 2N2222, where the current's coming out of the emitter and then going up to the 47K and through the 22
Yeah.
microhenry choke. And a 22 microhenry choke, you can get them on the internet and you can see that they're not very big.
Yeah.
And that's actually sitting right here across here.
Okay.
Of course, this being the bigger one and then another 22 here.
Right.
These two are kept the same. Now this 2.5 millihenries blocks the RF because the RF amplifier is getting RF from the buffer circuit, see? So it blocks the RF going in back into the audio circuit. So you only push forward is a good way to say that. And that 22 is sort of a big part,
Right.
and that would go right there.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's pretty big
Yeah.
for the circuit, and that's what's blocking the RF, allowing the audio to get gated. And so what's happening is the audio is gating this RF transistor off and on to produce the sidebands. It's actually distorting the wave,
Okay.
you know, which if you were to watch it, it wouldn't look perfect. It would be distorted.
Yeah.
So that's the basic functioning of the whole circuit. I mean, if you put this together and you have a spectrum analyzer and you have a sweep generator and you program it, you're going to get exactly what we just showed you.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm going to explain to everybody that I'm not a medical doctor and that you build this machine, or you, from my research work, which I'm presenting on this film, and that I make no guarantee at all for anything that you do or you do to anybody else if you build this.
So you make no claims on this?
I make no claims
Okay.
whatsoever, but I want to also explain to everybody that this is not your normal Rife machine. This is a mixture. This is a machine from my research work which indicates that it works far better with a pump wave involved in it, and that's a small DC current that's pumped that allows the frequencies to actually get into your body, where Rife's machine, you had to be within so many inches of your body with the tube. And for the RF then to penetrate you, you have to have power in wattage. So Rife's machine was 50 watts max until he hired the new engineer and they started to bring it up.
That was Hoyland, was it?
Yeah, Hoyland, and I think the highest, I would, 400 watts is a lot to be putting into a ray tube. Now, the other thing is that you don't need the ray tube. It doesn't make any difference how you get the RF into you. So I'm in a disagreement with a lot of things, like power and everything else. For the simple fact is I always worked in milliamps and microamperes with my machines and got results by using electrodes. So it's not that John Crane's, I want to make it known that it's not that John's Crane machine wouldn't have worked. It would have worked if he would have had that fundamental frequency and he could have gotten the sidebands.
In your opinion?
Yeah, no.
No?
In true reality, you
Okay.
need the sidebands because, as you will see in this DVD, if you're watching it now, you will see how the sidebands appear on the spectrum analyzer and exactly what's happening. And the other thing that I'm going to point out is nobody really knows, because there really isn't a record of who got cured and how long that cure lasted with the Rife or anything. Nobody's, with the Peoria machine, there are records. You can research those records, and it was documented very well because it was done by the French.
Right.
Yeah, and they're on Tom Bearden's website.
Yes. They're on, Tom Bearden's website, all those papers. And my discussion on this machine is basically my research and how I combine the two machines together
Okay.
to form a new machine. And the other thing is that I'm not so common, when it comes to complicated stuff. I don't like complicated stuff. So I like to simplify the circuit as much as possible, because all you need is the effect. And that effect, you will see as you get into this DVD, is it will produce the sidebands that it needs to produce. And that's all you need. Now, the next thing you need is you need to get this into the cells, because I have to agree with Tom Bearden on this. Let me give you an explanation of me
Okay.
when it comes to electronic circuits. I'm not one that likes complicated circuits.
Okay.
I feel that you can reduce everything to simplicity. In other words, as long as you achieve the results, as long as the scope's showing you the results, as long as the analyzer's showing you the results, and mysteriously, if the results work, then why do you need something that's so complicated? There are machines out there that are so difficult to build that nobody could build them. And if we really think about it today, we can do things with oscillators that we can program ourselves. We can do things with the transistors that we got. And so I'm not one that's going to make a very complicated circuit. And I want everybody to understand that. I'm going to reduce it to its simplest form so that it becomes to where anybody can make it. In other words, I would prefer that you had skills, and I would prefer that you had the equipment to check it. Otherwise, you're just stabbing in the dark, or buy it from somebody that's going to make it that has tested it. So the final thing here is the batteries for this unit, and I'm going to say this, that I would prefer that where the battery is concerned, that you use a lithium iron phosphate. A lithium iron phosphate battery, you can buy at Home Depot or any garden center that sells solar lights. Now, these happen to be 1 amp hour each. I would prefer that you use 4 of these batteries. They're 3.2 volts each. You use 4 of them, you're going to get up to the 12 volts that you need to operate this machine, and it's going to run for a long time. Because, as I said, I am not one that uses massive currents. I'm looking for the results on the analyzers. So, with that said, I'm going to get into the charger for it, which is an LM317. Now, these are adjustable voltage regulators. And I've fixed this one where I want these batteries to be. So, if you look here very closely, there's a diode right here. This is very important. if you do not put this in thinking you can just run the regulator to charge the batteries, and you disconnect the transformer that's charging them, when you come back tomorrow, the batteries are going to be dead. And then you're going to be replacing these. You don't want to run these to zero. When you run this type battery to zero, you run the risk. In other words, you run it right down to zero. You run the risk of this cell will not operate after that. Now, the reason that you don't really run it to zero in a solar light when they put them in there is because the LED is at 2.8 volts. So the minute there isn't enough voltage to run the LED, you're not drawing anything from the battery.
Okay.
So that's the little trick there. So you absolutely need this diode in the circuit if you're going to make this charging circuit. And you absolutely need 18 volts DC so that this regulator can operate. And the max charge that you want to put on this battery is 14.80. So I've chosen some resistors here that will get you exactly in the ballpark. A 220 ohm here and a 3.1K here. Now this is sort of an oddball resistor, because you just don't go to Radio Shack and buy a 3.1K resistor unless they have them in percentages. So you're going to need to order that resistor. And you're going to need to find a heat sink for this, because when you put the 18 volts, it's going to heat up. It's thermal protected and it's current protected. So if a short happens here in the battery, this will protect itself. But it's mandatory for the diode, or you're just not going to be able to charge this machine. And that's what I want to say on the charger. Okay, so what I want to bring up here, Pat, is Peoria.
Okay.
As I said, he is the most documented. It's on the Tom Bearden website. Anybody can read this information. I mean, when the military gets involved, you know, in healing devices, then you know that something's working.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the U.S. Office of Naval Intelligence went over there and wrote a report on it, which is on the Tom Bearden website.
Right, exactly.
In 1978, I believe it was, wasn't it? Thereabouts.
Yeah,
And the French Academy of Sciences were behind it.
yeah,
The mayor of Bordeaux laid the cornerstone for the facility, and then he got to be premier of France, Jacques Chalbin-Demas, and he opened up the Priori facility. The premier of France opened up the facility. So this was not inconsequential, and France's the permanent secretary of the Academy of Sciences sponsored it, and France's leading immunologist did the tests on the rats and rabbits and whatever. So,
exactly. Now, see, technically, this really is not a Rife machine.
Uh-huh.
It's using Rife's, Hoyland's sideband frequencies, but think about this just for a second. Peoria was mixing all these different microwaves together in this gas tube, which did the exact same thing that Hoyland was doing with the sidebands. And the thing about Peoria is he could penetrate the cells perfectly because of the rippling magnetic field, which that magnetic field gathered those frequencies and sent it through your body. And this was my discussion with Tom Bearden, that the pump wave is a very important piece of this whole thing. And as I was saying in the beginning, I like to simplify things. I like to have a simple oscillator that's doing just what it needs to do. I like to have a simple buffer that's doing just what it needs to do. I like to have a simple audio circuit, which is in Class A, that's just doing what it needs to do. And I like to have a simple RF amplifier and a simple pump wave oscillator. And it's very important that before we get into our discussion that everybody understands this, that we need to simplify this. This has to be something that you can have,
Yeah.
you know, that you can make. And if you need to charge it with a solar, then you charge it with solar. If you need to charge it by the wall, you charge it by the wall. But what you do not want to have to do is try to adjust things like in Rife's machine, where nobody knew exactly what the frequency was, so they had to sweep the frequency back and forth, and that's the other thing. It's the sweep generator. And Michael, can you hand me that blue generator that's on the bench there? This is a very important piece of equipment, and it's only like $127.
Mm-hmm.
And you set this thing to sweep, you know, from 10 kilohertz to 70 kilohertz, then you know that you're hitting all these side bands that hit the viruses and the bacteria. Anyway, now that we understand, you know, what this thing's going to be,
Okay.
that not only was the rippling magnetic field very important, but Peoria discovered aboard ship that there was some fruit laying next to a microwave dish. And when they were running the microwave, that fruit never rotted aboard the ship. So it must have killed all the bacteria, and I can understand where he took it from there. And Tony, do you have anything to add to that?
Not really. I think he was. I think he was a radar operator in World War II.
Yeah.
And they stored the vegetables up behind all the electrical equipment, and as you said, that's where it came from. And he was also a member of the French Resistance, as was the future Mayor of Bordeaux, who got to be Premier of France. So they were kind of buddies.
Yeah.
And because of that, he got a lot of backing from the government when Jacques Chalbon-Demas was voted into either, first of all, Mayor of Bordeaux and then Premier of France. And it's worth noting that Priori wrote a PhD on this. It's on Tom Bearden's website. And he also had 2 U.S. patents on it. So this is not a big secret.
Oh, no.
We got slaughtered when we got on the Priori thing. We really got slaughtered. And that's how that all got broken up. They ran Bob right out of the country to save it. He fled to keep his life and tore everything we were doing up. And obviously they didn't want that Priori thing gone at all. They called these doctors that were going to fund it. We had $16 million of funding already pledged by some very wealthy doctors that knew this was real because he had cured cancer and put it in hard French literature. So, and you know, replicated by other scientists working with him. So, strange people called all these doctors up and said, you know, if you put 1 penny in this, you and every member of your family will be killed, you know, and includes the children. If you think we're kidding, tell us which child you want to kill first. So in the space of 2 weeks, we didn't have any backing. We already had reached an agreement with Priori. So we didn't get to do it. Priori later had a stroke. Spent the last 2 years of his life, you know, basically out of it and helpless, and then died.
See, most people can't do this unless they have some kind of research funds. In other words, it's very important, even if you're a garage mechanic and you think you're going to do some kind of invention, what's the first thing you always run out of? Money. Mm-hmm. So you just have to stop your project. But I've been pretty fortunate in all this, you know, to receive grants and different funds to do all this. And so I accomplished it. You know, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to do it.
Yeah.
And so I just want everybody to remember that if they build this, that it just takes a little bit of money to do the research.
Yeah, and Priori was fortunate because the World Health Organization provided money for
Yes.
it, as did the French military.
Right. Where Rife,
He didn't have anything like
well,
that.
he had bridges.
Yeah, okay.
He had Timken roller bearing in the beginning. But see, as the people infiltrated into his lab, things started to change around and change around and change around. And I don't, and Rife said I don't think Rife was really into, you know, wanting to build a machine unless every one of these machines was tested by him in his laboratory
Yeah.
under his microscope. Now think about this. How many microscopes did he build? About 3. You know, some worked. Some people had trouble with them. There's one in the Smithsonian Institute. Why isn't that up and operating and we can view it? Mm-hmm. So what's actually missing? You know, now I do know, I'm not allowed to give the name, but I do know of a person that reconstructed the microscope and it does work. So I can say that here.
Yeah.
And
This is important to do the lab trials.
yes, of which I can't do because I'm not a medical doctor and I don't, you know, attend some university where they have all this stuff. And I think even if I did, the work would be buried.
Uh-huh.
But Strecker did it, didn't he?
Yeah, Dr. Strecker. Dr. Strecker was very interested in the microscope and, you know, being able to kill viruses with frequencies. And as you'll find out later in this movie, or this film, that Dr. Strecker had to put up with a lot like I did with John Crane. Because John Crane really did not have all the answers. You know, and it was more or less, Rife said things to him, but if John Crane would have had the answers, then he would have never, Rife would have never allowed him to just sell a frequency generator that you bought off the shelf. That wouldn't have been,
What do you mean if he had the answers?
if Rife would have known
Yeah.
exactly what the secret to the machine was
Uh-huh.
and understood it,
Yeah.
then John Crane would have never been able to.
Okay.
Rife would have just walked away from the deal.
Yeah. Okay.
Because to sell frequency generators off the shelf is nutty
Okay.
in a way. So I think that's what I have to say, Tony.
Okay.
And they can view the DVD. We've decided to move over because we're going to be looking at what the original wave looked like that Rife used. And then we're going to be looking at the sideband, you know, so yeah, on the spectrum analyzer, so we can see all this. So anyway, if you look at this wave, it sort of looks like a square wave. You notice that?
Yes.
But it's not a square wave. You know, this was actually made up from sine waves. All right, so let's go up here and look at what it was. This is actually the sine wave that's coming from his oscillator, and this is what it's producing with the gating.
Okay.
That's automatic when you modulate this.
Whose oscillator is this? Is this
And this is Rife. This is Hoyland. Basically, this is the Schoon machine, the Auburn Schoon machine, that is a copy of the Rife machine. This is not the original, but it's doing the same thing, and it had the correct frequencies. All right, now, one thing that I want to explain that Richard Hoyland used 3 different frequencies. He used C 3.8 megahertz, and then he used 3.3, and I think he used 3.1 something on a later version. And of course, Crane changed all that to 4.8 or 4.6.
Why'd you do that?
Well, he did it for the simple fact is that he didn't want to interfere in the 3 megahertz band.
Okay.
You know, so anyway, here's the original oscillator and the way that it looked. So you can see here
Yeah.
that it's not an absolute clean wave,
Right.
right? Today we can do far better than that, and the bands are much cleaner and everything, but This is a working machine. This machine actually worked. And see, when they did the sideband, these are your sidebands,
Oh, yeah.
okay? But with the piece of equipment that I have over there, the DS8, 815, we're going to see it much clearer.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm hoping that I've answered that, but let's go to the sideband calculator now. This can only be gotten on online at the Rife group,
Okay.
and you're going to have to search through a lot of stuff to get it, but it's actually it's downloadable once you join the group. Anyway, you can see down here it says input your carrier frequency. And see, it's got everything that's known to date that we have a number on in our system. So I'm going to change this carrier frequency to where my fundamental is, which is 31, and to where the end of my sweep generator is going to go out, which is 70,000. Because I want to cover a lot.
Okay.
I want to make sure that I can cover everything.
Okay.
And then I'm going to tell it to calculate, and these numbers change.
Oh, yeah, I
you
saw
just
that,
saw
yeah.
that change. So now if I go look at cancer, right here, the BX virus, it's saying that Hoyland and Rife's original frequency was 1,607, 450. All right? And it says that the frequency that I'm going to be looking for on the analyzer is going to be 3214900,
Yes.
plus or minus, 1 meter,
Right.
which is cycles. So
Okay.
maybe a couple hundred cycles, right? So now if we click on this and we go to the graph for the audio signal that we're going to input, which is, by the way, you couldn't hear this. It's at 57,450. See, that's way above the hearing range.
Okay.
But the machine can hear it. So now we open this up. We can see where we're generating our wave. This is what the oscillator's actually doing, although we're going to use a square wave, which is
Right.
going to come out like this anyway. And it says at what I've chosen, I'm going to be at the second band.
Okay.
And when I hit this second band is when I hit that cancer virus.
Okay.
Now watch. If I go back, X that out, and I choose something different like anthrax. See, it's still this carrier frequency remains the same, and still the sweep generator remains going from 10,000 to 70,000.
Okay.
And then I just hit that, hit the graft. You can see
Oh, it goes on the
that
other
it's
side.
on the other side. See,
Yeah.
it doesn't make any difference. When we talk about generating these harmonics, right? You don't want to have your machine putting the correct frequency way out here because, see, there's no power.
Okay.
The power goes up on sort of a linear scale, not quite. But
So you want on the
You
second,
wanna get
third,
it-
or maybe the fourth at the outside.
yes, you want to get it as close to the fundamental as you can
Okay.
because that's the most power.
Yeah.
All right, so let's look at a couple of more and then we'll turn around and spin at the analyzer and work with it. Okay, so let's go down to tetanus. And I always make it calculate over. So, okay, so now see, tetanus is up here too. You see, and it says that, why everybody chose 3100 is it gives you the most power in this band.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying? Fundamental is rock solid. It's not going to move.
Yeah.
So you don't care about that. So let's go look at something out like typhoid, the rod. See? It's also showing it's up high.
Okay.
And it says rod.
Yeah.
And it says, if we look on the spectrum analyzer, this is the frequency we're looking for, 3037.800.
And that's still 1 meter or less.
Yeah. I mean, we can be,
Yeah.
Since we're sweeping,
Yeah, yeah,
these are not going to be stationary like this.
Right.
They're going to be changing.
yeah,
So eventually we're going to hit that.
yeah, yeah.
All right, so let's get one that sort of changes form. See, it says it's in the first place
Mm-hmm.
here. Let's go one to show you a little bit less power, which would be tuberculosis rod. Now, these are the only two.
Mm-hmm.
Tuberculosis rod and tuberculosis virus. Rife said that once you kill the rod,
Mm-hmm.
if you do not kill the virus, the patient will go into toxemia
Okay.
because the virus will use the rod as food,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
its
Yeah.
waste material is going to kill you.
Yeah.
All right, so let's look at it. Where it is now. See, it's
Oh, yeah.
see, it's down in the power band. So, by the way, by changing this fundamental frequency, Pat,
Mm-hmm.
you can actually move this up or move it down.
Okay.
But we're not looking for one specific thing.
Because we're sweeping.
We want to sweep so
Yeah.
we can get this whole range
Right.
of viruses and bacteria. And see, some of this is bacteria like the B. coli rod.
Why does it say 5 on that?
Where?
Sideband number 5?
Yeah, sideband number 5. It's going to be in the 5th position. Pretty sure that's what it means.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah. Okay.
See?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
remember what I said on our chart,
Yeah.
that if I divide it by this, I can just count 3 over or 2 over or 1 over.
So when you're sweeping,
Then it's different.
it doesn't lose power when it goes down like that. It
No,
goes
as
down.
you sweep, you're going to run a frequency that's closer up,
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bigger to the fundamental. And let's look at that first, all right? Let's look at that now. And we can come back to this if we need more
Okay.
explanation on this fundamental frequency. Okay.
So by gating,
That means that the audio comes in and sort of kicks down the oscillator
Yeah.
to ground,
right,
and it goes off, and then it comes back on.
and so
And
after,
it causes these peaks.
after each packet there's a gate.
Yeah, see it here? See it?
Right, right.
Let me get it. Let me get it to where I want to see it.
So you're not sweeping here.
Yes, we are sweeping.
You are
See
sweeping.
it?
So everything is running through that. What we're seeing on that scope is everything?
Everything that's being transmitted right now,
Okay.
coming out of the machine. So you're actually looking at the packets there.
Okay, that's the combined.
Yeah, this looks a little bit different, but actually does the same thing, and a little bit more precise than what Rife's equipment did.
Right.
His was tube. This is digital, more solid state.
This is what's going into the patient.
Yes, that signal right there with these sharp spikes
Right.
there.
Okay,
But he doesn't feel that.
right.
Anyway, yeah, we're going to use the B&K Precision 4140B 12 megahertz generator in the sweep function in the linear mode.
So that's providing.
It's a laboratory. It has stopped. It's just showing you that
Okay.
it's going to sweep here, see? And it's showing you that it's in the linear sweep, see it?
Okay,
See that line?
yeah, yeah.
It's saying we're sweeping from here to here in a linear range.
And then it comes back and sweeps again.
Right, because if we stop this
Right.
for a moment, right, we just say stop. You see we're at a locked frequency there. And this may be better to see where it comes back down. See, it's ringing. Well, it's at a frequency where this is actually your packet
Right.
that I was showing you. See these squares? They look like squares.
Yeah.
But out here, they're sine waves.
Yeah, yeah.
See? All right? And what that sine wave is actually doing that we're inputting from this linear generator, right, the sweep generator, is modulating the RF circuitry to distort the wave and cause sidebands. So, if we go back to linear,
And that's a blank part.
Yeah, let's see if we can get this. There you go. I want to get it so you can see it good.
That's good. You can see that.
Yeah, when it goes down to the lower frequencies, see the
Yeah.
gates?
Yeah.
It's kind of hard for the scope to trigger on it. It doesn't know. You know, we can force it, but it's not gonna do it. And see, once we have our trigger line down here, we're not gonna be able to see it
Yeah.
until we get it to where it can catch a peak.
You can see it in that.
Yeah. So there's our packets, see?
Yep.
And the gates in between. So technically, it's identical to what Rife was doing.
How many times a minute were you sweeping it?
I'm going from 10,000. Well, where was it here? Sorry. Yeah, stop that. Okay, we've stopped at 60,000. So our stop is 60,000, our start is 15,000 here. And our rate is 11.8 seconds.
Okay. So every 11.8 seconds is one sweep.
Yeah,
So
it's
that-
going to go through the whole thing.
So that's about 60 times.
Yeah.
Six times a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we go back to sweep.
Right.
Go, and you can see that, well, we didn't stop the sweep, so it's still sweeping. But if we stop the sweep and we bring this out, you can see that it's all in here in packets. See, there's one complete
Yeah.
set of cycles that it's modulating on this thing.
Right.
And these sharp spikes are what actually get in there and kill the virus. Now we go back to linear sweep.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
If it sweeps at every 11.8 seconds, so that's about 5 times a minute,
Yeah,
and your blood flows through your body, takes a minute for your blood flow to
Right.
go through. If you did a 3-minute treatment, then you'd have 3 times 11,
yeah.
or 11.
Yeah, it's going to
Yeah,
hit it over
3
and
times
over.
5,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, it's going to hit it over and over, Pat.
Okay.
Now, let's go down here to this spectrum analyzer because I froze the screen here so that you could see what it's generating. And if I mark it, it's going to tell me right where this marker is. Can you see that there,
Yep.
Tony? Okay. And if I say that I want to look at the cancer frequency, we both know that we want to be at 3214. So see, I'm already past it. See, 32. So I can dial it in here, see? Okay, now see, I'm at 3214666 because the span. In other words, if I change the span, this number will get lower or higher. You understand what I'm saying? If I make the span go out, so I'm within 1/10 of 1 meter because I'm going to hit it when I sweep. So now let's look at what it's doing on the spectrum analyzer by unfreezing it. And see, I'm leaving the trace up there so you can see where we dialed in. But now see, on the second trace is in blue. See it hitting the cancer frequency each time, coming up to the resonant point.
So you're combining an actual sweep with
I'm leaving,
where do you set the original?
right, I'm showing you how it sweeps out, right? How it's going and
Right.
hitting that in the third place or the second place. See it? 1, 2, watch. The biggest one will be number 2, coming up right now. Right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so now if
Green
we,
is- yeah. Okay.
now if we go back, okay, so now we're on a blue screen instead of a yellow screen because that's the one we set to do the sweeping, all right? So now, Tony, let's pick a frequency. Let's freeze this when it's up here. So we'll wait a second here. All right, let's just say right there. See, now we've frozen. The yellow shows up as being there. So let's just clear all. Okay, so we're there. All right, now there's your fundamental frequency. We'll mark it 3-1. See. And now what we want to do is we want to take that span and we want to zoom out so we can get as many of these bands as we can in there, see? And then what we're going to do is we're going to amplify this up so we can see we don't need this much attenuation. We'll change the scale division. And we're in the log scale, so it's going to go. Okay, so let's freeze it and calculate some things here. So we've frozen the screen, and we've marked our fundamental. Now, as soon as I move this around a little bit, I can show right where I'm at with the fundamental frequency. You know, which I'm close enough. So now, if we go to the chart and you pick one out, like you talked about pneumonia. Remember?
Right.
So you can see what we're looking for is 2988034.
Okay.
All right. So now if we take the analyzer, and since we marked 2988, we'll just go 2988. We'll get 89499. We'll be within the range when we sweep. So now we'll clear this. The dot's right here. See it? We'll go and we'll unfreeze this. Now, watch as this comes, the dot comes up as the side bands get bigger and bigger and bigger. And you see it's going to end up exactly what the chart's showing you. And it's going to hit it right when it needs to hit it.
Yeah.
The freeze it has to rescan. Let's see if we can get this in a little bit better here. And that we would have to do by spanning it. There we go. Is that a little bit better on the camera?
Mm-hmm.
And you can see how many times it's actually hitting that pneumonia frequency. It's done it 3 times already. See, it's hitting it first in the low, and then it's building, and building. And so you can choose any one you want
When
there.
it drops here, that's the gate, is it?
No, the gating's done up here.
Okay.
But the spectrum analyzer, since you're sweeping, right, it's changing its frequency, modulating this. So you see it's getting narrower or bigger.
Okay, I guess I was just confused because it goes to the top and it goes to the top, but then it comes
Well,
right down
each
to the
time it
bottom.
goes to the top, you've hit the frequency.
Yeah, but it doesn't always come right down to the bottom, it seems.
Well, it does.
It does? Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, if you can't see it, it's see, look,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
going all the way to the bottom.
Okay.
So pick another frequency, and I'll freeze this out, and we'll see if it hits it.
Gonorrhea. Why not?
Okay, let me stop it.
It's 3.029.
Okay, 3.029. Okay, 3.029.
Right. And
Right.
3 zeros after that.
Yeah, that's fine, because see where it is on there, Tony? It's going to sweep it and hit it. So now we go back and unfreeze that. See it hit it with a, it hit it there, it hit it there. It's going to hit it there, but it's going to hit it with the most power here.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it's just going to be short of this one, watch. See?
Yeah, yeah.
Unless we change the span. But that's probably, it's going to hit it right where the chart says. So let's look at where the chart says it's going to hit it. Okay, so second band.
Right, and that's what it was.
That's what it's the second band that's going to hit it the
Yeah.
highest here, Tony. If we watch. It's not going to hit it on the first band. It's going to start over. We're going to wait until it builds, see? But meanwhile, it's hitting it all that time. So it's going to hit this in the second band, which is right here. Watch. See, it's at the second band that it's got the most power. It won't hit it here.
Yeah.
Now, we might be able to tighten this in. But it's gonna show you all these generations. I want to go back to the marker. Okay, so we're looking for the second band, which is the highest, which is right there, because it's not going to hit it there. And that's basically how it works. So now just pick another random one, Pat. These are tough ones. Tuberculosis, virus C. Well,
we
that's
did-
going
we
to
did
come
the
in the
rod, we
first
didn't
band.
do the,
Well, we should show them this come
yeah,
up in
okay.
the first band.
Right, we should. You're right. Yeah.
Okay, and so the frequency we're looking for is this one, 3076.
Right.
I think we did that.
We did the rod. We didn't do the virus.
All right.
The rod's I think on the 3.
Well, that's going to look kind of weird.
No, because he said you have to do both. So
Yeah, you have to
inside
do
it's-
both,
Right. So,
because one will kill you. Okay, so what I'm going to do is freeze this again. All right, now what frequency are we looking for, Pat?
3076 hertz.
wait, what is this?
Well, this is the tuberculosis virus we're looking for here with the marker.
Okay.
So we're going to start the sweep. We're going to go back and unfreeze this. All right, we've hit it there on the first band, Pat. And so we hit it right away, see? We hit it there, and notice that as they spread out, we've already hit it, and see it's right there where the fundamental is. So let's change the span a little bit while this is running, so we can actually get it better. There's the fundamental. See it hit it?
Yeah.
And so we don't have to be right on here because it sweeps it. It's going to hit it no matter what.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's going to hit it 6 times every minute.
Yeah.
Or is it 12?
Well,
Yeah,
every
about-
11 seconds.
Yeah,
Every 11, so
every
it's
11.
about 5 times every minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, see? So it's already hit it 2 times.
Okay.
There, it hits it there. And it grows. Remember, it's sweeping by. It hits it right there. See, and it's furthest.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you see them go out from there because of the sweep. But actually, what's happening here is that this, we might be able to get this. I want to get it in a clear view. Now notice this is on the antenna. And when I touch it, see the power go up?
Yeah, yeah.
Because the signal's actually transmitting into me right now. So it's pretty powerful right there.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I want to say is this is mandatory. This is a mandatory item to have, so that you know that when you make this unit from the little booklet and the video, that you can actually see all this.
So you're saying that you should really have the
You should have the
and
equipment to do it.
System analyzer, yeah.
Yeah. Now this, you asked.
Yeah.
what this was. This is the pump wave,
Okay.
and this is at 7.4 hertz.
Okay.
And that's generating a magnetic field right now in the antenna in the box. So the whole unit's actually in the box, or you can run electrodes on it. Doesn't make any difference.
Well, that box is a little different than from the other one.
Yes, we'll cover that later on. But
What, in another DVD?
absolutely,
Okay.
because since we've, you keep thinking of things to do to this,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's never ending because it just doesn't, it's not that it has to be done this way. Here's what's going on. Now you really must think about what I'm going to say to you here. That nature, if we just disconnect, turn this off, and we bring this up. You see these frequencies? This is in the air.
Yeah.
See, it's hitting the cancer and it's hitting the type. But what's happening is it's being masked by everything that we're using today, the computer, the digital switching supplies, these lights. If we really look at this, if we say we plug in that frequency that cancer is, which is 107.455. But we have to tell it frequency, so we gotta go to a frequency of 107.455 and tell it megahertz. Now what it's going to do is it's just going to look for that frequency. And so what we want to do is 107. Well, it's way down here at this end. So that means we have to bring in this span. So if we go here to the cancer virus, they want 1607, see?
450, right?
Yeah, so they want 16. And it's going to be out here somewhere. Now the funny thing about the spectrum analyzer is I think we can tell it center frequency. So if we push that, so what is it exactly, Pat?
1607.450 hertz.
4
50.
kilohertz or megahertz, yeah.
Hertz, it says.
Okay, so now see, Tony,
Yeah.
you can see that it's detecting that frequency right here when it goes up.
Yeah.
Because I think if we mark that, actually it's not telling us here. So let's just go back and set this again. Okay, there's our fundamental.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see what we're doing here. But I think, you see this fundamental right here? Pat, there's something here that the antenna is picking up. So if we mark that, what it is 518.2.
That's in the natural background.
Well, that's not the natural background.
Yeah.
That's in the natural background right there.
Right.
518.2 megahertz. Something's transmitting.
Right.
See? So if we take this, right, and let's say,
That's the camera sound.
well, it could be.
No, it is. That's that frequency, 518.2.
Okay,
Sorry.
fine. Well, that's there. See?
Yeah.
It's actually picking it up.
Yeah.
Okay, now, if, say that a radio station, right? Say we wanted a radio station, just to give you an idea of what you could do with
I
it.
mean, I can cut the sound and do it off the other mic, but
Yeah. But you're picking this up.
Yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
okay because it demonstrates that that's what
Yeah,
it is.
that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to demonstrate to you how it does, what it can do
yeah. But
here.
I think what you're trying to also demonstrate is the fact that all the healing frequencies are in the natural background
Noise.
noise, but we have polluted them so badly.
Yeah, we've polluted them because, see, they're all in this noise.
And that's why there is so much more cancer these days than there was 200 years ago.
Now, here's a radio station, see?
Okay.
Right.
That's at fit 150, see, it's at 1.5 megahertz.
Yeah.
Right.
That's an AM station here. So, let's see if we can get, these are all radio stations, Pat.
Okay.
So, this is what I'm trying to show you, that we've actually polluted ourselves out from anything which naturally would have healed us before.
Right.
So let's see if we zoom in and get these.
And meanwhile, Congress is auctioning off all those frequencies
Yeah, exactly. Too.
to the highest bidder.
Yeah.
So they can pollute and cause even more cancer.
Well, yeah, this is what I'm trying to say to you here. That so if we just auto this, let's just say that we went from 900 kilohertz, right? So we can catch Rife's frequencies, all right? So if our start frequency is 900 kilohertz, and our stop frequency is going to be 2 megahertz. That's all we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
That's, see the frequencies in here?
Yeah.
The peaks. So now if we marker this, so we want for the cancer frequency, we want 1607, right? See 666? See it's coming up on the peak here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you could, this is just something that I'm going to bring up to everybody. You could build a crystal filter that just picks this up right here.
Picks what up?
Picks the cancer frequency up
Right.
and amplify that, and all you'd have to do is pulse that, and you would have the machine for cancer. If Rife's frequencies are on.
Yeah.
Right. If not, it'd miss it.
If on, it would miss it, but you'd want to sweep this a little bit so
Right.
back and forth.
So you could have one machine for cancer, one for tuberculosis.
You could.
One for
Yeah, the virus.
Different crystals.
different crystals.
Yeah, you would want to hit the rod and the virus at the same time, so you'd need to combine those two.
Got anthrax or
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah.
Because, see, it's already existing.
right,
Those frequencies are already existing in the noise.
right.
So it's a matter of amplifying the noise. And I'm not sure that this is amplified. Yes, RF preamps on. So all we have to do now is change this attenuation. We're at 2 dB there. Scale division there. Now we can see them much bigger, see? So see, look, it's already there, Pat. And there's multiples in there.
Yeah.
So it's like scanning itself. You notice that,
Yeah.
Tony, that they're jumping around. So if you built a crystal filter that just filtered this,
Yeah.
and if we just filter this, and this is blocked out and that's blocked out, and we amplify this, and then we pulse it, there's his cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I got to say.
Assuming that Rife's.
Well, I'm pretty sure that he did.
Yeah.
Well, if you scan a certain, if you scan above and below it a little ways, then
Yeah, you'll hit it. If you filter this out, and that means building a crystal filter,
Right.
and that filter ignores this end and that end,
Yeah. Yeah.
and just lets this come through. Now you amplify that, and you pulse that, and you can see the bands in here. I don't know if we can span that out.
Yeah.
Okay, see, notice that?
Mm-hmm.
See? It's scanning it, it's moving around itself.
Yeah.
So it's hitting it. See it here?
It's bouncing up and down the.
Yeah, let's change this, and then we can, if we change this scale to move it up so you can see it. So see the dot?
Mm-hmm.
And see, it's like a double
Finds
peak.
the stair and gets up there.
So I know that these natural healing frequencies were already in the noise that surrounds us.
And
Yeah.
so this, just to recap, you're actually amplifying the natural noise that's around
Yeah.
us right now,
And I'm hitting his frequency.
and you're hitting the cancer frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And see, if I take the marker, it's telling me. I can look at all the frequencies I can hit. Like you said, you see it. See, here's these peaks.
Yeah.
If this happens to be one of his frequencies, I can amplify that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, or I could go over here and I could look at this one. It's already there.
Just not,
Nature has supplied everything that we need to keep ourselves healthy, but the problem is we're masking all this out.
So am I correct in thinking that's why 200 years ago, whatever, there were far fewer illnesses like cancer?
Yeah, there were
Yeah.
far fewer illnesses. I mean, but once you got an illness, they didn't have anything to cure
Right,
you.
right.
You just died.
Yeah.
So basically that's, what I wanted to present to you
Yeah.
was that you can hit it. And here's the machine here, Tony, that's doing the work. And this is
But that's what we're going to talk about in the next.
yeah, that's what we're going to talk about, this one in the next
Right. Okay.
machine, because it's more like a,
So we might even take that out.
Peoria
completely
machine.
from this thing.
I'll just give it a quick.
Yeah.
and like Tony said, this guy is well documented in France.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad I could share this with everybody.
Okay. Well, I think everybody owes you a great debt of gratitude, John, for not trying to patent this work and not trying to hide it from the public, but for bringing it out
Yeah.
to the public. And as I said, I think everyone owes you an incredible debt of gratitude.
Well, I think they're going to need it here coming up in the future.
Well, and on that uplifting note, we'll end this segment.
Okay. Tom would have said, have a good day now. Okay, this is, I want to explain to everybody, this is a MOPA, and you can see inside there that it's a tube. This is exactly what Rife's unit was. This is a remake. And it's very critical that everything matches up on this, because it's very difficult to get the signals in and out of, because it's just a triode tube. It's much easier with a solid state unit. But anyway, let's have a go at it. Let's turn it on, and we'll see if we can catch the fundamental first. And there's the fundamental frequency, and it's actually scanning. So let's see here. Let's get this up. Let's find out where it is, so we can set the generator. Okay, this one's oscillating. Now watch as I turn this. I'm going to change the direction.
What are you turning?
I'm turning the tuning so I can get the fundamental above 3, see?
Okay.
So now I'm going to mark that. And I'm at 279. See? Marker. Now this is an outband way out there, Tony. See as I tune this? Okay, now it's sweeping. See, it's modulating and sweeping.
So this has a pump wave.
No, this is a straight Rife unit.
Okay.
And there's the bands.
Right.
And see, now it's modulating.
Okay.
And these are the frequencies that it's scanning and hitting. So it looks a little bit different here on this unit. And I'm going to scan this out. I'm going to attempt to scan it out. See how it looks?
Yep.
and you can see that it's scanning here, and then it'll reappear when it comes back because it's hitting those bands. See, it's hitting all these bands, and then bang, and there's the tube over there. It's lit up.
So this is the actual tube you're using?
Yes, that's, yeah, and right now I'm running from 50 to, and you can feel that, you know. You can see that it's a little bit different. And it's actually scanning all the frequencies right up here. And there are those packets again, see? See 'em? And I'm doing that the best I can do with this because this is just definitely antique.
When did you build this?
Well, I built this back in 2000 when we were all working on, Jeff Garf and the rest of us were all working on it, and you can see that it's doing its thing.
I'm getting some interferences.
Oh yeah, you don't want to do that.
I get too close.
Don't get too close because the RF's going to burn your chip in your camera.
Yeah.
So let's take it away so you can see that it's really there.
What is this now?
Well, I just turned it off so you can see that that when it scans and gets the bands,
Okay.
you gotta get this thing up. See, it's barely lit right now because I've got it turned way down because I don't want to burn things up. But here, you can see it here. A little out of this, and I'll hold on to it. There you go. See it? Pretty good, huh? Well, you can see it scanning the frequencies there.
Okay.
See? So that's exactly what Hoyland was doing. And it's scanning, you know, the generators. It's changing it, see it?
Right.
See?
So just to reiterate, Hoyland was actually scanning. through-
Hoyland, no. One specific frequency.
Okay.
I am sweeping
Okay.
so that you can see the bands appear on the MOPA.
Got it. And then on the upper scope, we're seeing.
You're seeing the packets, see, as it scans. It's kind of hard to get it in because it's the, there you go.
Okay. Yeah, I'm getting RF interference.
Yes, see, yeah, don't get too close to
Yeah,
it. So see, you can see here that it's sweeping.
yeah.
And I've got the power turned down, and this tube is quite hot. So what the doctors would do would hold the tube like this in the area, and then they would sweep the dial.
That's what Rife's doctors would do.
Yeah, they would, like if you had something here, they would hold the tube here,
Right.
see? And now I'm scanning all these frequencies. So who knows what it's doing? It's probably affecting my Stevie Wonder glasses.
It's affecting the camera.
I know, because it's real RF. I mean, it's you know, this is a big oscillator compared to the solid state.
Right.
Okay, this is your tank coil. And you, by tapping this, you can get different power levels to the tube. This is a triode tube. And then, of course, you've got your RF choke here and your tuning, where you can tune the fundamental frequency a little bit, filament transformer and power transformer.
Okay.
And then your audio is, I've got it on clip lead, so but it actually goes in here, and the antenna is hooked up out here. So when you
Right.
turn it on, it lights up, and then if we take the, I'm going to hold it so I can get the best signal there. And it takes a while for it to warm up. That's the problem with them,
Yeah.
is they drift around for a while until they, I probably have to add this thing. There we go. Once the analyzer's caught it, then you can see it sweep. So it's going to sweep and make the same bands.
Yep, good.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you, John.
I'm glad I could show you this.
Well, you know, it's nice to see the way, you know, you've been developing this process.
Well, since 1975,
Yeah,
I've been working on it, so
yeah. And
there you go.